Good morning, everybody. Thank you all for joining us physically and those virtually. Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and start the September meeting of the Assistance Oversight Committee. So the first thing we're going to do is say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, here we go. So first off, this is our first meeting without Carol. We have Jackie, who's going to do an amazing job, but I just want to thank Carol. She has been here since the very beginning, since we had that first meeting, Virginia, at the, what was that building? On the river? Yeah. And so, Carol, if you're watching out there, I know you're probably antsy. It's Friday. It's time for another meeting. Thank you personally, and I know the COC, thanks you as well for all your work. And I hope the weather is a little cool enough where you can start running again. She's a runner. She likes to run marathons. So maybe Boston Marathon one day. Thank you, Carol. All right, so we'll go ahead. And Jackie, if we could do a roll call.
Sure. Lorraine Krause is absent. Charles Venuto. Present. Vinnie Toronto.
Here.
David Scherer. He's absent.
This is Jackie.
Oh, sorry. John Windsor.
Here.
Terry Casto. Looks like he's here virtually.
Yep.
David Lane, here virtually. Here. Laura Lee Thompson is absent. Stephanie Ely. Kimberly Newton.
Check your mic, Kimberly.
Todd
Here.
Swingle is here virtually. Susan Hodgers. Here. And Eric Manns.
Here.
And
All right.
skipped Courtney.
Oh, I'm sorry, Courtney. Oh, I missed you. I'm sorry. Courtney is here.
Here.
Sorry.
All right, so I'm thinking we have a quorum?
We have a quorum.
Great. Okay. All right, so the first thing we will do is I'd look for a motion for acceptance of virtual votes.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Any public comment? All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, there we go. Look at that, we're moving. All right, thank you very much. The next thing will be the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second. Any discussion? Public comment? Okay, we'll go ahead and vote. All those in favor of approving the agenda, say aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
All right. A delayed aye from David, I like it. It's like an echo chamber. Cool. All right, so we will, the agenda is approved. Next thing, approval of minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any public comment? All right, a vote. All those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? All right, we're good. Man, look at that. We've gone through 4 items in 10 seconds. That's amazing. Got to be a record. All right, thank you, everybody. We'll go ahead and have Virginia with the progress and fiscal reports, the monthly progress report. Virginia.
Okay, thank you. I also wanted to thank Carol for her 5+ years with the program, taking lots of minutes and all the important administrative functions that have to happen. And we're excited to have Jacqueline Watkins here. We've actually borrowed her today. She starts officially on Monday, so thank you, Jacqueline, for stepping in. And I also want to introduce Jean Allen, if you can raise your hand. You know, we lost Walker Dawson a few months back, so Jean Allen is going to be heading up the MUC program. She has a graduate degree in chemical engineering. She's a PE in environmental engineering. She has a master's from Florida Tech in public administration, over 25 years in environmental remediation. She owned her own landscaping company for 10 years. She's a native of Brevard County and grew up on the Lagoon as a playground. So we found a great engineer to run that program. All right, so diving into the progress report, we've completed, or the homeowners have completed, and we have reimbursed 3 more folks for upgrading their septic systems to advanced treatment. And the zoo has completed over 2,000 more square feet of oyster bars. University of Central Florida researchers performed 24-month, 2-year monitoring at one of the early oyster bars and found nearly double the amount of oysters per bag that we placed out there originally. And there's a lot of bridging where, you know, one oyster and another oyster have grown together and bonded together, and that's helping to bond the reef. So a 3-dimensional structure out there, which is really important to longevity of those systems. The river edge shoreline planting, this is using the Marine Resources Council's new mangrove anchor systems where they're wrapping the root balls in the concrete covered jute. And so, so far, it's only 3 months post-deployment, but they're seeing better survival than what we've seen in our other projects. So we're excited to continue monitoring that project and seeing how that method works. Matt Culver, who's here today, has overseen the removal of 2 more derelict vessels this month. Jumping down to work underway, the application portal for new applications for funding through the Save Our Indian River Lagoon program is still open. It will close on September 30th. Last month, we reported that the smoke testing of nearly 40,000 homes is complete. The homeowners have the notices continue to go out to the homeowners who have leaks in their system, and they are applying for funding to assist with those repairs, and we've been reviewing those applications and cranking out reimbursements. The South Central C septic sewer project, construction there is about 60% complete, and kudos to Anthony Gubler, who's been out there with the homeowners, getting them to go ahead and sign agreements ahead of time with a plumber so that they are ready to go as soon as they're allowed to connect to that new system. So 140 of the 147 homeowners have already signed those agreements and have a plumber lined up and ready to go. So yeah, we're excited about that. The bad news that we just learned is that the electrical panels for the lift station are hung up in all the supply chain issues. So we've made good headway on getting the sewer system, into the ground, but we can't flip it on until we have an electrical panel. So we'll see how long that takes. For the Miko Septic to Sewer project, we're finalizing shop drawings and looking forward to breaking ground soon. Jumping down to plumbing services, of which there's just a lot of demand with all these projects going on. The committee had asked about doing another RFQ to get more plumbers. That is underway. In the meantime, Meeks is one of the pre-qualified plumbers. They have been just incredibly responsive to the community, so I wanted to highlight that. Two of the other pre-qualified have been less responsive. They are out of the county, so the travel time is an issue, especially for these small jobs, the leaky lateral repairs. So we're really hoping that we can get more of the local contractors through this new request for qualifications. We have 2 stormwater projects up in Scottsmore that are under construction right now. The land clearing is complete, the equipment's mobilized, so that work is underway. Grand Canal and Sykes Creek muck dredging are both underway, and we continue to work with the auditors on the 2022 audit. So flipping to the other side, presentations this month. Anthony is meeting with the South Beaches Zone A sewer project. The survey is underway in their community, and the phone started ringing this week with everybody asking what's going on. So we've got a community meeting set up for them next week. And Terry is doing quite the road show with the Cocoa Library and then Rotary Park Back to Nature and Merritt Island Wildlife Association. Charlie was kind enough to invite us to speak about the Lagoon program at their meeting. In terms of upcoming science forums and public events, Ocean Research and Conservation Association, ORCA, they have a lot of things going on this month to learn how to do different kinds of science, and you can either just, participate and learn and kind of observe how it's done, or down in the volunteer participation opportunities, once you've learned, you can actually come back and participate and help them collect that science. The Marine Resources Council is holding the Low Impact Development Conference, the second of their Low Impact Development Conferences, October 20th and 21st. October 21st conflicts with your next monthly meeting, so I know a few people have asked us whether we need to meet in October, so you can talk about that. And the International Coastal Cleanup is tomorrow. People can volunteer through the Marine Resources Council or Keep Brevard Beautiful or the City of Melbourne, loads of sites all up and down the lagoon. And then October 1st, the Marine Resources Council has a mangrove workshop, and Keep Brevard Beautiful has a Battle of the Causeways cleanup. And that's my report.
All right, ending it on a Battle of the Causeways.
Yes.
That sounds exciting. Awesome. Real quick, Brandon, if you could, while you're at the computer in Virginia, I just want to show people where the portal is to fill out the applications for the projects. So
Okay.
Logan, if you could take the computer, or Brandon, if you could share the screen and just show, I'm sure there's a link from the Sorrel website.
Yes.
Oh, you're sharing it.
Not on Zoom. Hold on.
Oh. Okay, great.
Okay. So,
And again, this is the portal for,
all right. So we'll start from the beginning. So if you go to the Brevard County website, go down to the Manatee, there's the Save Our Lagoon page. Or you can go directly there just by typing brevardfl.gov/Save Our Lagoon. And you go down here to our grants. We have project funding application. Click on that.
I know it's a live
Real
internet
slow.
test, and you never do this. Like Bill Gates did this once and the computer crashed while he did it live, so.
All right, and there's the application. The resources are all there, the different project types that they can apply for. So that is it.
Okay, great. Great. Thank you. Okay, and two things, because we moved so quick in the beginning, I forgot. Everyone, please make sure your mics are on when you go to talk. And then second, David, Terry, and Todd, if you could just test the hands, raise your hand button. I just want to make sure everybody's good so I can follow that if you have any questions. Thank you, Todd. David and Terry, if you could just click the raise your hand button or find it. All right. Thank you, David. And Terry, if you could just click that, and that way I'll be able to see if you have a question. And I know I put Terry on the spot. He might have run to let the dog in or something. Oh, David's got his hand up again. David, I already saw your hand. Okay. Well, Terry, if you can find it, that way I'll know you have a question. And while we're doing that, we'll go ahead and go next. Or does anyone have any questions for Virginia's report? Kimberly, please.
Where exactly is the status on the plumbing requests? Is that like an all-call has been sent out, or is it still in-house getting the logistics in place to add plumbers to that list? Because you mentioned one plumber in 140 houses, so that's a big order there. It would be great if we had that ready and get some more plumbers on that list.
Yeah. I just got an email that said it went live yesterday. And it'll be, you can accept questions until September 27th, and then it'll close on October 12th. So the local plumbers will need to have their whole RFQ package into purchasing by October 12th.
How extensive is the package? I haven't looked at it, I haven't seen it. Is it is it a great deal of info, or is it just business license experience, pretty basic?
It's mostly basic stuff. Business financials, like resumes of key staff. There's a bunch of forms to sign. There's some extra language, since the plumbers may be working on projects which are funded by ARPA. It's extensive, but not.
Why such
Terrible.
a short window? Why just a couple of weeks?
That's
I-
how they do it.
3 weeks is typical for this size kind of work. And Matt said ARPA, that's the American Rescue Plan funding. So the federal funding has a bunch more rules, and there's E-Verify. So, I mean, there are quite a few forms that people will have to submit to qualify. Everything's got to be above board.
Of course. And where did you send this out so that the contractors know that it's an option to apply?
It's the county's procurement office handles all the procurement processes, and so there's Demand Star, I don't know what all the different places are that they post it, but it is the way that government handles advertising of work.
Okay. And then in regard to the 140 homes that you already have up and running with the program, how many of those already have secured a plumbing contract? Or do you know?
All those 140 have, and that's just for that one Indian River Isles project, which is actually Anthony Gubler's project. Matt Badolato has got all his septic upgrades and all the leaky laterals, so he's got hundreds more folks.
So did the 140 homes go to that one company that you mentioned, Meeks, or I'm not sure what the name was?
Yes, Meeks went door to door and provided people with very competitive quotes, and they didn't have to go with Meeks, but those 140 people all chose to go with Meeks.
Okay, great, thank you.
I think maybe, Kimberly, to that point, Virginia, do you think if Brandon posted it on our Facebook page about the open RFP for plumbers? And then, I was going to talk about this in the communications section, but each of us, if it's already posted on the, our Lagoon Facebook page, we can simply hit the share button and then just share it. So hopefully that will get the word out even more about it.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you guys. That sounds amazing, Virginia, Matt, and Anthony, although I wish Meeks would have contacted me so I could go door to door with them. I love going door to door and meeting people and having people like ask you, invite you inside, make cookies for you, all that good stuff. But that 140 is an amazing number for such a short time.
Do you want to go find the last 7?
Yes, I do.
Okay, I'll give you their address.
Anthony, yes. And Meeks, if you're watching, 321-549-8460. That's my number. Call me. I got a pretty face. Knock on a door. We're good. Yes, Anthony, please call me.
And Matt's got about 400 people with leaky laterals. So
Matt,
we
I'm
can
ready.
put York.
I'm ready. I'm ready. All right, awesome. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Kimberly, great questions about trying to get the word out. All right. So I think, any other questions for Virginia on the progress reports? Okay. We'll go ahead then and go to Crystal with the financials.
Good morning, good morning.
Good morning.
All right, so here we are. For June, we received 4.4 million in our revenue tax. The quarterly discretionary was at 3.1 million. And so right now we are at 275 million since conception, which means we are 5.9 million above projections at this moment. Do I have any questions?
For the year, right? For the year.
Well, for the year and
For the
overall,
fiscal.
yes.
Great. Anybody with questions? All right. As usual, Crystal knocked it out of the park. Thank you for that. All right. We will go directly into the meat and potatoes of our meeting. That would be, the financial statements.
Uh-huh.
Okay, thank you. That's the meat and potatoes.
We have 17.6 million in expenditures currently for this fiscal year. We're at 51.9 since conception, and I want to drive it home that this is the end of our fiscal year is September. It ends the last day of this month, which is 30th. So anyone out there, please make sure you close out your projects and have all your work done and an invoice, a reimbursement ready no later than October 19th so it can get processed for this fiscal year. And do not put this year and October in the same invoice because it will get thrown back. So I just want to drive it home that we are in the end of our fiscal year and we'll be starting our new fiscal year. So I'm going to be really, really busy getting all these things out for everyone.
All right.
Any questions?
You want to talk about August?
Oh.
So last month, the August statement that looks like this one was accidentally left out of your packet. Crystal did present it during the meeting, but we've included it in this packet. We've also included it in the last packet with a note that it was added late. So if you have
Great.
any further discussion about August financials.
Okay. Great. Thank you, everybody. All right.
Good. You want this up or you want this down?
So now we will go to our other reports and special presentations. I know we've talked about it recently. So today we have a presentation on at-risk vessel programs.
This is Officer Morgan Maslow from the Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission is here to speak to you about the program.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Is it on?
Yep.
Okay. I'm Officer Specialist Morgan Maslow. I patrol here in Brevard County. All the officers in this area are assigned to Brevard, Indian River, and some are assigned to Osceola as well. I have been in this area for a little over 9 years. I work a lot of our derelict vessels, so I'd like to believe I'm pretty well versed in that topic. We have had some updates to the derelict vessel law, so I'll kind of go over derelict vessels for those of you that don't necessarily know what they are or what makes a boat derelict. And then I'll talk about at-risk vessels, the nuisance vessel program, and we have a TIP program. It's the Turn It In program for people who want to relinquish their rights to their vessels. So a derelict vessel is going to be a boat that's junked, wrecked, or substantially dismantled. And each one of those pieces have their own definition. And then we have recently added any vessels that are docked or moored at a residence or a mooring area without the permission of the property owner. In those instances, the boat's not going to have to be junked, wrecked, or substantially dismantled. But we're going to have some issues, in my opinion, with homeowners giving people permission to keep a boat at their dock for X amount of time and then saying, oh, well, I don't want it here anymore. We already gave that person permission. So we're going to have to learn how to navigate in the field, how we're going to deal with that. But a boat that's junked is going to be stripped of any components, degraded or destroyed. In the field, we don't use that definition a ton to define a boat as derelict. We more often use wrecked and substantially dismantled. A boat that's going to be wrecked is sunk or sinking. It's going to be aground, and it's not going to have the ability to extricate itself under its own power. And it's also going to be, or it could be, something that's remaining after a marine casualty, so either a fire or a boating accident. And then the last one we're going to have is substantially dismantled. It's going to have 3 elements to it, and it has to meet 2 of the 3 for the boat to be considered substantially dismantled. And this is where it's going to keep the definition different from derelict to at-risk. Anything that's substantially dismantled is missing, degrading, incomplete, inoperative, or broken of the steering system, the propulsion system, or exterior hull integrity. So for it to meet substantially dismantled, it has to be 2 of those 3. Things that have been updated with regards to derelict vessels for this new statute or the updated statute is going to be, it's going to be on the waters of the state in that condition. We eliminated some other verbiage. It's going to be stored there for 24 hours or more. So a lot of times we'll get calls in from the public saying that there's a boat that's derelict. It's going to have to be there for 24 hours before we can move forward and putting it into the derelict system. They also changed if an event outside of the vessel's owner control occurs, so like significant weather or someone cutting their anchor line, we have to wait 7 days. We have to give them 7 days before we can move forward with putting things into the derelict database. So I think from the public perception, it's going to look like maybe we're not responding as quickly as they'd like, but per statute, we have to give them that time. So that's in the gist, the derelicts. At risk is going to be a separate statute, and at risk is we want to prevent the vessel from becoming derelict. So it's at risk to become derelict. That has different elements of it, and there has been a similar one added, just like the derelict for mooring. But a vessel that's at risk is taking on water with no means to dewater. So let's say it has no power, it's raining a lot, and the bilge doesn't work, and the boat's just filling up with water. Another element of it is the vessel has spaces that are designed to be closed that can't be closed, or they're open for an extended period of time, exposing the vessel to the outside elements. So a lot of sailboats, people won't put their door on it for some reason, so it'll just be wide open. And you'll look at the boat and there won't be a door at all. So that would be a way for us to issue them a citation for the boat being open to the elements for at risk. Another portion of that is if there's windows or something in it that remain open for an extended period of time and they could be closed but they're not, that is something we have to revisit the boat make mental notes of when that's occurring so we can enforce that statute, or that portion of the statute. Another element of it is the vessel has broken loose or is in danger of breaking loose, so it drags anchor or it has completely drug anchor and ended up somewhere else. Similar to the not having means to dewater, the vessel is going to be listing due to water intrusion. I think that's a scenario where it's likely we could issue 2 derelict vessel citations, one for each of those. And then most commonly here in the county, we have vessels that don't have effective means of propulsion. In that instance, we have to give them 72 hours of notification. We set up a date and time to do an effective means of propulsions test. Caveat to that is if people are making repairs to their boat and they show you a receipt for it, we give them 30 days before we make notification again. So we do have a lot of boats that don't have effective means of propulsion. So that's one element of it being derelict, but it doesn't meet anything else in that substantially dismantled spot. So that's kind of, we get stuck in limbo with trying to get these boats, back into compliance or off the waters entirely. The last element of at risk is going to be the vessel's tied up to an unlawful mooring or an unpermitted structure. That has been added similarly to the derelict one as well. It's just going to be up to the officer's discretion if they want to move forward with it being derelict or issuing that at-risk citation. The fines for these violations, the first offense is $123. The second offense is $273, and the third and subsequent offenses are $523. Kind of with this at-risk law is going to be this nuisance vessel law. The state's working on how we're going to move forward with it. We just had some training on it, and it's not, this information is not readily available for the public. And they wouldn't give me the PowerPoint because this has got to make some tweaks to it. So I'm going off of what we just had in training. But the nuisance vessel is a boat that's going to be on the waters of the state, and it has received 3 citations for one of those at-risk elements. But it has to be the same one. So let's say it's dragging anchor. So they have to get the dragging anchor one 3 times within an 18-month period. That's going to designate the vessel as a nuisance vessel, and that will allow us to remove the boat from the waters of the state. We're going to go through a similar process as we would for the derelict vessel with regards to providing notification and giving these people a vessel owner rights packet and things like that. It is a lengthy process. It's going to have to be to the same vessel owner. So the same person is going to have to own the boat every time they receive the citation in order for it to be deemed a nuisance vessel. We have a lot of boats here that change hands regularly. I see that kind of being a challenge. But if we stay on top of it, we can get these same citations to the same repeat violators. I think we'll have, better success with it. Let's see. And I was just speaking to Matt about it earlier with regards to funding. I believe we're working to use the derelict vessel funding that the state allocates for nuisance vessels as well. I believe in the beginning they're maybe going to do it separately. I think that's what they're leaning towards now, though. And then lastly, we have the Turn It In program, the TIP program. I wish I could have snagged a brochure, but they wouldn't let me take them. So basically, the Turn It In program's been created to allow owners of at-risk vessels to voluntarily turn in their boats for removal and destruction. When Irma came through, we kind of did something of a similar fashion. There was just a vessel amnesty program, and it was due to the storm. And we went around and basically gave people these waivers saying you can turn your boat over, no questions asked, providing it was a result of the storm and we would destroy it and remove it, it took a lot of work, but we got a great number of boats out during that. So this is kind of going to operate in a similar fashion. It's looking to help reduce the cost of future removals. Obviously, it'll be beneficial to the environment and to the taxpayers alike. With this, though, the boat is going to have to be registered to the person who's saying, hey, I want you to take this. So what's going to happen is they'll get an at-risk citation, and then that'll kind of like make them eligible to apply for the TIP program. The boat's going to have to be registered to them. It's going to have to remain in an at-risk or better position. So while they're applying for this program, it can't become derelict. But once they get signed off or accepted into the program, they told us, in good faith, that they're going to continue with the removal process regardless of kind of where it's at. Matt Culver and I were talking about it earlier. It's on the horizon. It's near. I'm not really sure when. I think maybe in the next couple months.
That's what Ray said, in the next month or so.
Month or so. Yeah, so that's definitely going to be beneficial. We have a lot of people that have at-risk boats that, they look at these things and they think it's the greatest thing, I'm going to buy a boat. And they get it and they're like, oof, I'm in over my head. What do I do now? So hopefully this will help us a lot. Does anyone have any questions?
All right, thank you, Officer Specialist Maslow.
No problem.
Charles?
Yeah, thanks for the great presentation.
Yeah.
How is the TIP program going to be advertised so that word will get
So
out?
what they just the training we just had, they had these pamphlets and it basically told you everything about it. They're looking for us in the field to, if we encounter someone that does have an at-risk vessel, we're issuing the citation, give them one of these brochures and say, hey, look, you know, the boat's at risk. If you don't want it to come worse and you feel like you're over your head, we're going to give them the pamphlet, encourage them to apply for it, and hopefully they will. And I mean, you can't make them, but.
And just another question too then, in the big picture and considering how long, the lagoon stretches through Brevard, does Brevard have more derelict boats than other counties, or?
My personal opinion, I feel like we do, but I don't know statistically. I know the Keys, down in the Keys, they have quite a few, and the Tampa area, I feel like because I work them so often, there is a really big presence of them here, but I couldn't tell you statistic-wise. I could find out. Thank you. No problem.
Okay. Anyone else have any other questions? Dr. Windsor?
Yeah, thanks again for the presentation. The amount of time that you spend in paperwork, I'm familiar with the program, but it seems like there's an extraordinary effort on the state's part and the county's part to make sure that nobody gets their boat taken away improperly.
Right.
Do you find that you're spending more time with people who just aren't responding to you in your efforts to deal with them, or more times that people are actively trying to thwart you from having their boat declared a derelict vessel?
Once you figure out who actually owns the boat, because we have such a difficulty with getting people to transfer ownership properly of vessels. I don't know why anyone would think it's any different than a car. We see that a lot. Once you find the person who owns the boat, most of them will take the citation, take the vessel owner rights packet, and they sign for everything, and they say they're going to fix it. They feel that they can bring it back into compliance, and that's all we want. We just want compliance. We don't want it to be an environmental hazard or navigational hazard, and we don't want it to become, worse than it is currently. A lot of people will try to fix it. A lot of people can't fix it. Not too many people really tried to evade you. They just think sometimes everyone has different circumstances, and they end up, these vessels being their homes, and that's really, part of the reason we make sure we're not just taking somebody's boat. We do, kind of as of late, have people that will just get the boat to float and move it somewhere else, and they think that doesn't make it derelict anymore. Then we still come and take the boat, because at this point, legally we can, and they freak out and think we stole their boat or something like that. So we run into that occasionally, but not that much. I hope I answered your question. Okay.
Great. Any other questions? Courtney?
I was wondering if you're finding more and more vessels being occupied as homes lately?
Yeah, a lot of people, I don't think there's been a significant increase in it. I mean, I've been in this area for 9 years. I went to college here as well, and I've been in Brevard since 2004. I think we've had a steady amount of boats on the waters, and the mooring laws allow, people to moor where they're mooring. I believe Cocoa Village area is working on a mooring thing, and so is Melbourne. But yeah, a lot of people, pretty much everybody that's in that Cocoa Village area is living on the boat. There's a couple in the Banana River that are living out there, but it kind of seems like we come in and we do a lot of enforcement and issue a lot of derelict or at-risk tickets, really. Then they move to a different spot, but they're
Okay.
still in the area, so.
Yeah.
Still
Okay,
find
thank
them.
you.
Great. Okay, I just had a few questions about the tip program, because
Okay.
for me, it seems like that seems to be the easiest and the cheapest way for us all to get those taken care of. And so that program, is that a state program?
Yes.
Okay. And so, because the reason that I'm saying is it seems to me like if anyone can call the number and get their boat on a list, that would be great, better than having to wait till you get a citation.
Right.
But apparently the rules say you've got to get an at-risk citation first?
Yeah, the boat has to be at risk.
Okay,
So a citation or a warning in order for them to apply for it. I
okay.
think, I can't speak entirely. I'd have to imagine the concern would be that everybody would just be like, oh, I don't want this anymore here, without really having any good reason to get rid of their boat.
Okay. But then it's, because it seems to me like if you wait till you're at risk, the boat may already be in a situation where it's in disrepair, and then waiting for that approval to come through may end up making it derelict, like you were saying, right?
Right. So it's going to be on the vessel owner to keep the boat in an at-risk or better condition, which really, these people who own boats like this, they are, I'll give it to them, fairly resourceful. So let's say the boat is listing because of water intrusion. They'll go down the road and get a battery and hook a bilge up to it and pump it back out. So they will fix these things. They will get them into compliance where it's just like putting a Band-Aid on it. If they can just put a Band-Aid on it and keep it where it's at until it gets worse, because my understanding, and Matt could probably, clarify, the removal costs for something that's in a at-risk capacity or not totally sunk, like just absolutely totally foregone, is going to be less, one's going to be less than the other.
Yeah,
So I would,
okay. Yeah, great. And then, if it's a state program, I'll reach out, because I've got some other ideas. Just to me, it seems like you said some people will be resourceful and they'll move their boat. Obviously, they don't want to lose their boat because they feel like if they paid for it, they lost everything. So
Yeah.
maybe the state or something could give them, and I know I'm saying things and people may not like it, but anyways, maybe the state could give them a discount on their registration the next month or the next year or something. Just incentivize them to go through and trade that boat in.
I'll be very honest with you.
Yeah.
I'd say 1 out of every 10 of these people
Is
are
registered.
actually paying for registration.
Yeah.
They're not registering the boats. They're not registered, they're not titled to them. And, as someone that does and deals with this frequently, it makes it difficult for me to find the correct owner. A lot of times we end up writing the citation to the last registered owner because it's on the last registered owner to take the boat out of their name as well. And a discount or something like that's
Yeah,
not
it's not gonna
gonna
work.
encourage anybody.
Well, thank you, Officer Specialist Madlow, for saving me time suggesting that. No, that's good. Well, thank you again. It just seems like such a huge task, and I know, Matt, back there, we used to see you all the time at meetings, and I know that's a tough thing to deal with, so thank you for all that you do. Because besides for the environment, those boats are a risk for other people that are out there on the river.
Right.
And so it's very important what you do, so thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right. So the next thing that we have is the project video from 142 Productions, and it is a sewer lateral smoke testing video.
And we tested this earlier with David Lane, so hopefully everyone in Zoom land can also hear us. It worked this morning, but we'll give it a try. We're here today in Merritt Island, where we are doing smoke testing to look for deficiencies in the sewer and lateral lines.
The county's involvement is we're contracting USSI to perform the smoke testing on our behalf and also on the behalf of Natural Resources Department. They're the funders through the soil program.
This is a interdepartmental project. The Natural Resources and Save Our Indian River Lagoon program is coming in to help the property owners address their side of the problem.
So smoke testing is one process that we can do to find defects, where they pump a non-toxic smoke down into the pipelines, and it will come out of the ground or broken pipes, missing clean-out caps, any areas where there might be a defect.
So the smoke is produced by using, it's essentially a lawnmower with an inverted propeller, and what we do is we use a safe vegetable oil. We heat that up on the carburetor, and what it does is that fan then pushes that vegetable oil into the system. It goes about 1,200 feet in either direction. Well, what that does is that every house is plumbed into the sewer system, so as that smoke is pushing through the system, it's supposed to come out of the vents on a house. That means your house is properly plumbed. Where smoke comes out of the ground as a clean-out or a manhole lid and cover or a service line, our crew will use our software. They take a GPS of it, they take an image of it, they use temporary spray paint to document it. So the intent is to do a full defect report, and that data is then provided to the utility with Brevard County to process and determine what to do with it after that.
What we want to do is we want to reduce the amount of stormwater that's running off from rain into these openings. And then also there's groundwater beneath the grass, and the pipes are oftentimes submerged in that, believe it or not. And so if there's cracks or openings in the pipe, then you have water entering the pipe. The pipe's not under pressure, so the water's going to go into the pipe, and that's going to be moved along to the pump stations. What does that mean for the utility? We're treating groundwater, or we're treating rainwater, and that's unnecessary really for us.
And when we have heavy rain events such as Hurricane Irma, that water can overwhelm the system and lead to sewer overflows. We're trying to prevent sewer overflows because that is another source of nutrients into the lagoon. The smoke testing projects are funded with the Save Our Indian River Lagoon half-cent sales tax, and we also use that funding to leverage state grants to help expand the program and cover more area, and also to help us provide financial assistance to homeowners.
So we also have other grant programs for homeowners to do things like upgrading a septic system, or for homeowners that are already along an existing sewer line, we have a quick connect grant to help alleviate those costs as well.
If a property owner needs assistance, they can contact us at irlproject@brevardfl.gov.
All homeowners in the county can get involved with restoring the Indian River Lagoon by visiting lagoonloyal.com. On that site, they're going to find simple tips that they can do around their own home to reduce their nutrient pollution footprint.
All right. Thank you, Brandon, and 142 Productions. Anyone have any questions or comments on that video? Anyone get any calls from people saying there's smoke shooting out of the top of my house? Please help me. Okay. Yeah, no, I know this was a program that we started after the plan, and I know Courtney and Satellite Beach, you guys were helpful in implementing this and testing it. So I think it's a great program because a homeowner doesn't need to do anything, and they can have their laterals tested through this program and find out if there's a problem. I know we had plumbers come in and say usually the homeowner finds out there's a problem when they get a bad odor coming from their pipes and stuff. So I think this is a good way to help them. So awesome. All right. Thank you, Virginia, Brandon, and 142. Okay. Now we will go into, as Stockton pops a lifesaver in his mouth back there. I caught that. Stockton, we'll go ahead and start with the old business. So the first thing we have is our septic upgrade program retroactive payment requests. This was something that came up last month, and we've got some new stuff on it. So I think I'm going to be turning it over to Matt Badolato.
Hey, good morning, good morning again. So last time we met, we discussed some retroactive payments to a few homeowners that reached out to us who didn't hear about our program and went ahead and installed an advanced treatment system, or they didn't qualify for our grant at the time, but they still did it. And they're contacted us seeking a retroactive reimbursement. A question came up last time about whether all of those folks would qualify for the for a reimbursement based on the conditions that we came up with last time. There's 10 conditions. And when we looked closer at those properties, when they were put in, how much nitrogen they would potentially reduce, we noticed that some of them would not qualify for a retroactive reimbursement with the conditions that we came up with last time. So we're going to go over those conditions and some of the properties and look at some options. So here are a list of the 6 properties that have contacted us requesting retroactive reimbursements. There's 6 of them. The ones in red would not qualify. So for property number 1 there, it was completed in 2019. And the rules that we came up with before stated that we would not reimburse anyone who completed an upgrade after 2020 when we reimbursed the first person for this project. Property number 4 there would not qualify for a retroactive reimbursement of $6,000 because its estimated total nitrogen loading was less than 10 pounds. And property number 5 would not qualify because it is in one of our septic to sewer conversion areas, and we already have funds allocated to pay for their sewer connection. Here are the possible, here are the conditions that we came up with last time. So the upgrade must be voluntary, not required to do it by Department of Health or state. The upgrade must have followed all the other program guidelines of our septic upgrade program prior to them, doing construction. The upgrade must be permitted, certified, inspected, approved. The operating permit must be current. The payment amount would not exceed the cost of their total pay. And then the work must have been completed after September 1st, 2020, and completed by June 1st, 2022, which is when we last sent out notifications. The loading must be at least 10 pounds total of that property based on our 2018 loading model. We decided that a retro pay should be a flat $6,000 and that the sum of the retro payments will not exceed $100,000. We also had these other considerations for the COC to decide. Wow, this is messed up. Yeah, this is messed up. Going to switch slideshows real quick.
Let's see. Stephanie, did you have a question now? Do you want to wait?
I did have a question. The property owner that had less than 10 pounds, how is that possible? That seems odd to me that it would be so low. Was their system kind of new to begin with, or?
No, it's probably based on distance, so we actually have aerial
okay.
imagery
How far
to
it-
show
far-
you where these are and
Okay.
color-coded based on the loading, but, it's based on distance and soils and slope and soil type and.
Okay, so it's probably farther away from the lagoon. Okay, that makes sense.
And those numbers are from that report that came out in 2018, Virginia, right?
Yeah, the 2018.
The 2018 numbers? Sorry, Courtney.
Yes.
The last property you mentioned, was that they wouldn't be eligible because they could hook up to sewer? Is that what you're saying?
That's what I caught.
Is that what you caught? Okay.
That they're sewer optional, but they upgraded their
But they
septic
upgraded their septic
instead
instead.
of connecting to sewer.
Understood.
But I do believe it would be an AWT or an advanced septic system, which may be cleaner than the water coming out of the septic plant if it's not an AWT, I think. Charles?
Yeah, I'm just curious on the one that had 9.4, if that was 9.51, would it have been rounded up and they would have qualified?
No, the model is out to 2 digits, so that's what, we've been using 2 decimals.
Okay, Matt.
Okay. So our slideshow's a little messed up, so I'm just going to kind of wing it. So here's one of the properties that we were just discussing that would not qualify because, based on this model that shows, it's that orange property, right here. It would only be eligible for $5,644 of Sorrel grant funds. If it was 10 pounds, it would be eligible for $6,000. If it was 11 pounds, 12 pounds, it would still be eligible for $6,000 as is. A possible solution would be to make this person eligible for a retroactive reimbursement. We could, instead of having a flat $6,000, we could put a maximum $6,000 retroactive reimbursement, which would, allow these properties that qualify for less than $6,000 to still get some reimbursement. So this one would get, $5,644. This program right here, or this property right here, would actually be eligible for a reimbursement of $15,865, except that he completed it in 2019, so you currently wouldn't qualify for any reimbursement. We could make it so the property owner or the program allows reimbursements back to when the program was first implemented, which would go before 2019.
And while they're getting that, Virginia, whatever our recommendation is the thought that will go in front of the county commission next month or whenever, or is it going to wait to go along with the project plan?
No, we could go ahead and take it to the county commission.
As a
We
separate-
since the question was asked, would everybody qualify? And at the time, Matt thought they would. As we gathered more details and looked more in depth, obviously, some of them didn't. It was, half of them didn't. So I felt like we needed to bring it back, share that information with you, let you consider whether you want to change any of those 10 guidelines. And so we have, Matt can walk you through the 6 properties, and the highlighted conditions were the ones that conflict with the 3 properties. And we have, strike through and underline here for you to consider, if you want to come up, if you want those folks to qualify.
Great. Stephanie?
If we move the date to 2019, so that first property would qualify, then does that open the door for other people to come back and say, hey, we did this too?
It definitely does, and I know Charlie Venuto asked about, well, aren't there DOH records that we could go through to see who else? So Brevard County, the county commission adopted a septic overlay back in 2018 to require advanced septic systems in our most vulnerable areas. And so we have thousands of folks that have installed advanced systems because they're required to by that overlay. And the purpose of this program was to encourage people who are not captured by that overlay, who are existing, to retrofit there. So the overlay applies to new construction or people that are adding bedrooms and have to replace their system anyway to meet the state code. This program is to capture people who wouldn't have to upgrade their system anyway and encourage them to do so also. So yes, if we open it up earlier to capture this one person from 2019, there could be more that qualify, but going through those DOH records, there are thousands of them, and most of them would have been mandated to do this. So we'd be looking for a needle in a haystack, and it would be hard to right? There's not a box on that form that says I had to versus I didn't have to, so.
Well, and Virginia and Courtney, I'll go to you and then back to Matt, but just because I don't want to forget, one of the other requirements, though, was that they had to have chosen to, not because they had to. So even though there were thousands that were in that septic overlay, those would not be included
Correct.
in the current guidelines.
Correct.
That were
And they still would not be under this revision, because, can you go back to number 1, right? They
Right.
still have to demonstrate that it was voluntary.
And not part of that overlay that the county commission passed.
Correct.
Courtney, did you have?
That's exactly what I was going to say. It looks like that issue is kind of covered under those other criteria. So, okay. So if we changed it, we wouldn't be causing that problem because you have these other sections. Okay, thank you.
We wouldn't have those thousands, but it would be hard to tell a number, which is what you were saying, because there's no checkbox to say, I chose to, not I had to.
There could be other people that we don't know about who are going to talk to their neighbors, talk to the septic contractors, find out about this program and realize, oh, I did my conversion in 2019.
But that's why we created that $100,000 cap.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Matt, thank you for that intermission there. We were able to have some discussion amongst ourselves before we forgot what our questions were. Thank you.
Gotcha. So yeah, this first property wouldn't qualify because it was done before the date. So we could change the language to say that work must be completed after program inception. This second property, who is requesting a reimbursement, we would offer that $6,000, meets all the other proposed guidelines for the time and nitrogen reduction. Same with this one, loads 26 pounds, so over 10 pounds, so it would qualify for the $6,000 reimbursement. Property number 4, loads less than 10 pounds, would only qualify for $5,644, but would not get that grant as it is written. So to accept this person's request for a reimbursement, we could change the guidelines to get rid of the nitrogen reduction requirement. So doesn't matter how much nitrogen, they would get paid $1,200 per pound of total nitrogen loading and up to $6,000. And then this one more person who has requested a reimbursement is actually in one of our septic to sewer project areas, and they would not qualify for the grant because we do not offer these grants to folks in these areas because we have already allocated funds for their sewer connection. And lastly, this property owner reached out to us a couple weeks ago. She qualified for the full $18,000. She filled out all the paperwork, but never submitted it to us. She actually submitted it to the county clerk, but we're going to process that reimbursement because she, thought she was doing the right thing. She just did the paperwork wrong. So the new retro pay options to consider are here. Recommend to the commission that we authorize these homeowner payments who meet this conditions listed. Recommend the commission consider specifying other conditions, or recommend to the commission that they reject these requests.
Okay, great, Matt, thank you. Stephanie?
I would like to move that we make a recommendation to the county commission that they authorize the pay based on the new criteria that you all developed, which would change the language to at the inception of the program, and would also change the language of up to 6,000.
Okay. There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all right, motion and a second. So, any discussion amongst the committee members? Dr. Windsor?
Quick question on the prorated repayment for those less than the 10 pounds. Do you anticipate that'll open up any more requests from people who decided not to apply because their loading was less than 10 pounds? I'm just covering the same base that we were talking about a minute ago with the changing the first criteria.
Say possibly some folks in the Merritt Island area.
But this is what they would have qualified for had they filled out their paperwork. So this doesn't,
We were kind of expecting it anyway, they just didn't know. That's why we're doing this.
Is your mic
So,
on, Courtney?
yes.
yeah, so I mean, this is going to qualify some small number of people
Okay.
who would have qualified for under 6,000, but it's enough to make them fill out the paperwork now and
Okay.
Right.
seek reimbursement.
I just didn't want anybody to be surprised later if we get another request coming back for, right.
Okay. Any other? Kimberly, please.
And it's not anticipated that any additional houses would exceed that 100,000 cap. I mean, it's not like that extensive amount in Merritt Island, or it's just maybe do you have any ballpark on, is it 5 homes or 100 homes or?
That would probably involve like looking at the DOH records to even estimate that, but
To me, it seems like the 100,000 cap at the 6,000 max. I mean, there's a lot of homes that could be added to that, especially just, adjusting those 2 criteria. I don't think it would exceed, I wouldn't imagine that there's been that much accomplished in that field.
I mean, it's a significant expense, and so if, to take on that significant expense voluntarily with no thought of reimbursement, how many people out there would have done that in the last few years? That's who we're talking about. Right.
Okay. Looks like Terry in Zoom land. Terry. Oh, you're muted, Terry. Oh.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
So this is crazy. I'm hearing you through my phone, but I have to talk to you through the computer. Hey, is it that big a deal? If there's a database of all the septic permits that have been issued in the last couple of years, is it that big a deal to run a data search to map the permits that were granted against these restrictions, like areas that are where they were, required to do it by code? In other words, can we not drive out the number of candidates, folks that might be interested in this, instead of kind of guessing at it?
I think, Terry, and as a techie, the problem is there's no zip code or city code that works, Virginia?
Well, the folks that would qualify for funding under this program are going to mostly live within that same buffer that is the county's ordinance. So what makes them voluntary versus mandatory is whether it was an existing system that they upgraded because they wanted to, instead of because their system was failing, or because they were adding bedrooms and had to expand their system, or, had some reason why they were already upgrading.
Right.
And, there's also state rules if you are locating your drain field within a buffer to waterfront, or you need a smaller size drain field to have room on your property for everything else you're trying to do. There are a lot of other reasons that the state may require ATUs, and so we don't have a good way to query the system for why.
I withdraw the question.
Okay, thank you. Courtney, did you have something else? Okay. All right. Any other discussion in the committee? I will say, Virginia and Matt, thank you for those changes. I think that they're great. I think it's a great catch, and thank you for bringing it back to us, especially with the new data that you had. My only concern, I guess, is if we're giving $1,200 per pound on a prorated scale, then it seems to me that the one person was 9.5, 9.51, I think we found out. And so that's 6,000 because it's $1,200 per pound, right? So they would need like 5 pounds. Anything 5 pounds and above is going to get 6,000. If it's $1,200 per pound, right?
There's still a $6,000 maximum,
Right.
so they would get, can you show the 5,000?
Oh.
Sorry, thank you, Logan. Right, they would qualify for $5,644.56.
At the 9 pounds?
Yeah, 9.41. The
Yeah.
advanced system cuts their loading in half.
Got it.
So when you cut 9.41 in half, it's less than a 5-pound reduction.
Okay. So it's the reduction, not
It's
the.
the reduction that's just
reduction.
under 5 pounds times 1,200 a pound.
Got it.
Gives you just under $6,000.
Okay. Matt, were you gonna? Okay. Because I was gonna say, if it was under 10, then we gave a flat 3,000. If it was over 10, then we gave 6,000. But I think the sliding scale works too. Again, these people put out the money without any requirement to do it. So sounds good to me. All right. No more discussion amongst the committee. Then we'll go ahead and take public comment. Is there any public comment on the motion on the floor? And we do have one virtual attendee. Rebecca, you have any comment? If so, raise your hand. If not, we'll move on. All right. So the motion on the floor is to go ahead and accept the changes presented and bring the motion forward to the Brevard County Commission. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, passes unanimously. All right, thank you again, Virginia and Matt, for that catch. All right, so the next thing that we have is our communication expansion discussion. And I think, Brandon, do you have a deck, as the kids say nowadays, to present for us? We used to call it a slideshow back in the day. A deck. It's a deck, Dr. Windsor. How many decks have you presented in your lifetime?
All right. So, just to go over the campaigns that we had in the plan, or have in the plan. Then currently funded are our fertilizer, septic system, sewer lateral maintenance, and grass clippings management campaigns. And then listed in the plan but not funded are excess irrigation and stormwater pond best management practices. So just to give you a little overview of what's in there. So when we looked at putting these in the plan, we had to come up with a nitrogen reduction benefit. And we had to go through, different methods depending on what was available. But for example, the fertilizer management, we looked at surveys that were done in 2015 with our Blue Life, and then again did surveys in 2019 with UF-IFAS, and saw a 27% increase in slow release fertilizer use. So we were able to calculate a nitrogen reduction there. All right. Septic maintenance, we didn't have anything on individuals in this county, but we were able to look at some of the national statistics and see what percentage of septic were failing, so could try to estimate something from there. And our grass clippings management, Alachua County did some campaigns where they saw a 24% awareness increase. And, since that's very similar to what we saw with the fertilizer as well, so those percentages seemed reasonable, and we use those for our nitrogen reduction. Give you a look at each of the campaigns as they currently stand, and then if we decide to change this is just a suggested change. It can be, it's up to you guys to decide, but in the original plan, or as it is now, we're spending about spending $50,000 per year, and we did put an additional $75,000 the first year just to develop the campaign, and another $50,000 in year 6, so that we can evaluate and update any media and things that we need to. So as it currently stands, it's $95 a pound for the cost of nitrogen removal. And if we were to double that, so we add another $50,000 per year, all right, not, or excluding any of those startup costs. So we'd be looking at $132 a pound of total nitrogen cost on the fertilizer management. Then our septic and sewer lateral, as it currently stands, we budgeted $300,000 in there, so that was $25,000 per year with an additional $25,000 to start the program off. And it is removing $67 per pound of nitrogen, and if we double that cost, so we're doing $25,000 more each additional year for the next 5 years, it would be $95 a pound. Our grass clippings management, that one, we worked with Marine Resources Council, and they had come to us with a proposal. So that one doesn't have the initial startup cost because of the proposal that they came to work jointly with the other counties and share some costs with them. So that was a $20,000 per year expense there. And so if we doubled that for the next 5 years, we'd move from the $11 per pound cost to $17 per pound, one of our cheapest ones per pound. Now, with the excess irrigation, that was one that was decided to cut from funding when the board asked us to scale back the outreach. So if we did that one, considering that we would have to do, the $25,000 per year and also that additional $50,000 the first year to start it up, that would change the initial cost per pound that we first estimated at $196. That bumped it up to $229 per pound if we start it this year, or this next plan. And then if we doubled that funding like we were doing with the others, it would be $392 per pound. Same with the stormwater pond best management practices. It's more costly per pound since we're starting it late in the game. So it goes from $91 per pound up to $106 per pound, and double that would be $181 per pound. So to give you an idea compared to other cost shares in the plan, so this was the approved cost shares for 2023, and you can see some of those are under what we are spending, and then a few of those are above some of our lower ones, but still well under a lot of the higher costs. And there's just a compare. So I will then leave it to you guys. Oh, one other thing we had in your packet, this is just sort of a summary of what was put out in there, but this gives just an idea on the general costs for these different types of campaigns. Now, each of these campaigns might be more effective than some others, depending on what message we're trying to get out there. So just because it's cheap to reach 1,000 people doesn't mean it's going to be as effective when we reach those people. So that would all be evaluated when we do these programs and with whatever marketing team we work with to figure out the best way to do these. But we will turn it over to you all to discuss.
Okay, thank you, Brandon. Okay, Stephanie.
The excess watering, it seems like there are a lot of other entities that are doing some education on that already, besides us. And then with the stormwater ponds, those are you're going to be targeting primarily like HOAs or maybe businesses that might have one behind them. So it seems like that that would be an easier targeting. It wouldn't be as widespread in that you could hit those entities without spending quite so much money, because it's not as broad. So to me, that would be potentially worth investing in. Even though the cost seems a little bit higher, I think that you could target those entities without spending as much money.
Yeah, and the stormwater pond one was, relatively low. The excess irrigation was the costliest per pound.
As I said, I think that there are other entities that are doing that already. And so it might be a little bit redundant for us to be doing it anyway, and since it's so expensive.
Dr. Windsor?
Yeah, in the first go-around, I thought stormwater ponds were very important, and still do think it's important and should be added in. On the irrigation, though, most of the other folks that are talking about excess irrigation aren't worried about nutrients. They're worried about wasting water. And I think the message may get diluted, pun intended, in the discussion of wasting water and nutrients. So I think we need to take a hard nutrient focus on excess irrigation and what excess irrigation is doing. So I would support the irrigation program. I support both programs as they're laid out here.
And initially, some of the excess irrigation that we were considering targeting would be things like the reclaimed water, that if they're using already nitrogen-laden water and be able to reduce that, which doesn't fall under the conserve water idea.
Okay, Charles?
Yeah,
And Courtney?
And I was going to say kind of similar to what Dr. Windsor just mentioned about the irrigation, because it is looked at from the district, the St. John's district, different than what we're talking about. And then you add using the reuse water. So I think there's a good story there. And, going back and looking at the costs per pound, this is very efficient. And so I think to be good stewards of the budget, more of this has to happen so that we realize the gains in the improvement for the lagoon. So I would definitely support both of them. The other component to this is a little different when you start talking about the advertisements and the different ways, and I'm sure there's experts who can identify, whether a billboard or an ad on TV is the most effective. But one of the things I would like to see is I don't think we're getting enough credit for the projects that have been implemented and the positive results that they've had. And I'd like to, can we put into the contracts when they do these projects that they have to put a sign up that says, you're spending your tax dollars in your river lagoon, it's going to, reduce nitrogen, phosphorus, just to make it put it right in front of people's face so they see, these are happening, because they're not really exciting projects when you're talking about, infrastructure for the most part. You don't get people, real excited about that. But if you tie in, hey, this is the tax dollars and these are the results that are going to happen, or at least what we expect, I just think we need to be advertising a little bit better to the community and kind of letting them know that, we're working on these things, and we've got a ways to go, but, we made some improvements.
Okay, Courtney and then Todd.
Yeah, so I also agree that the excess irrigation, and I totally agree that there's other entities that do that, but I also agree that, a lot of people don't really put the nutrients, they don't know about that aspect of it. And so I agree that we should be involved in putting out education for nutrients regarding excess irrigation. But I'm wondering if it's possible that we could partner with St. John's to see if we could get them to maybe even change their messaging a little bit in partnership with us, just like we did with the MRC, maybe try to drive down the cost for us and partner with them to get the word out and add the nutrient message to their messaging as well. So that's one item. And then the second is I totally agree with Charles that when we're looking at two different kinds of messaging, and one is the education piece, which is absolutely necessary. I can't tell you how many people I encounter that think that government will solve this whole problem and that they don't realize that they have to change their fertilizing methods, their watering methods. They just have no clue. And so we really need to get that message out, but we also need to get the message out of what we're doing. because again, we all encounter them. People say, especially on social media, what is the Lagoon tax doing? What are they doing? They're not doing anything. Where's that money going? So I think when we're looking at these lists of things, I think we could definitely use our social media ads to push out our work a lot, and the signage piece and requiring in the contract to put the signs out at the sites. I totally agree with that. And then even, maybe if we have these budgets here, and if we could discuss adding or increasing those budgets for the education that we're already funding, and then add in the excess irrigation and the stormwater ponds, but we also include another budget for the social media, the bus wraps, and the other things that are on this list, because bus wraps are great. We're doing that in our city where we're wrapping all of our trucks, and that's really for our stormwater, But doing these other things and just kind of giving the staff a total budget so that you can go out and, do your thing without having us micromanage you. But that's would be my suggestion, because I think all of these items are good. I probably wouldn't put a lot into the mailer ads like the Valpak and Saving Safari, because to be honest, I just throw them away. I don't even open them. So, and I know everybody's different, but I'm pretty sure a lot of people would agree with me that they don't really open those things. But the radio ads, definitely, all of those things, it kind of mix and match what we're doing with the tax, the education piece, and so on. That would be my recommendation.
Okay. Todd?
Yeah, a little bit, just kind of building on those Courtney's comments, is that the irrigation side, there's a lot of different communications, so making sure that we're partnering and aligned with those different communications is important. That being said, though, I can tell you I've got a bunch of data showing how little that it makes a difference. Most of the information I have is on water use, and we just don't see that much from an awful lot of the communications. But where we have seen huge results is in targeted direct contact on the education piece. So using utility data to find, because generally if somebody's, spraying their irrigation, they're either using too much or it's being applied in areas where, onto hard surfaces and things like that. Having the utilities have someone that is looking for those issues, that they're using that data to see who's using higher amounts of water, targeting the data so that you can get targeted contacts on folks that, perhaps your highest users of reclaimed water in areas that are close to the lagoon, and then making that one-to-one contact. For me, that's a much better investment on the education front. And I can, in fact, I just gave a presentation Wednesday night that included, yesterday afternoon, that included some of that data where we've seen, 50 and 60% reduction in water use once we do irrigation audits and make direct contact with homeowners, because the irrigation systems are, while they're not that complex, they can be complex for many homeowners that don't understand it. So that direct contact can make a huge difference. So I agree with it being in the list. I am concerned about just the logistics and overlap with the other entities, and using those dollars as productively as possible to get the most results.
Okay. Susan?
I had a question on, you mentioned on the excess irrigation that the board cut it. Do you know why they cut it?
So the board had asked us to cut back some of the funding. There were, different opinions on it, on, the effectiveness. They weren't sure on that. And then it came back to this committee to then make recommendations on there. They didn't specify which ones they wanted to cut when the board asked to cut it. So when we came back, the committee looked at it, and we looked at cutting the higher cost ones. And we felt that the ones that we kept in were, definitely good ones.
I like Charles' idea about the signs, because when you go around the town and it says, here's what your money is going towards. What Courtney was saying about the mailers and the postcards, when I get the savings safaris, I do throw them out. So I'm not sure if, at one of the meetings we had talked about doing like door hangers and maybe doing targeted houses. I live down the street here in Vieira, and the Vieira company has a new homeowner orientation, and they talk about the Lagoon. But some of the people, my neighbors, who are like political voters, and some of them have no idea about the fertilizer. And a lot of us have lawn care, and, do the lawn guys know that? So there's so much opportunity to reach out to people, and, Home Depot and Lowe's, if they would partner with us and let customers know to not buy things, so.
Yeah, and we've been in discussions with IFAS on some of the fertilizer applicators. They all have to take a class, anyone who handles it. So it's unlike some of the other permits where just one person in the company can have it. This one, anyone who handles the fertilizer has to have the permit individually. So they all have to take a course, and we've been in discussion with them about potentially adding some of these campaigns, like, we could add a component on grass clippings management and things into those required trainings.
Are there other counties in Florida that have a mandate that say things? Because like what Virginia was saying, unfortunately, there's some homeowners that they won't do something voluntarily. I know, like when I help out at the office with homeowners, a lot of homeowners, they look at a roof, they look at it as a warranty, they put in a claim, hoping somebody else will take care of it, instead of just saying, hey, it's a maintenance, you got to pay $20,000 or $30,000. Is there a way that the county could make the people follow what we recommend?
Well, there are ordinances in place for, fertilizer application, and, you can't leave grass clippings in the street, things like that. Those are all enforceable by code enforcement.
Okay.
And I know, to answer your question, Susan, I think Courtney, Virginia may have something to say too. I think Orange County just recently passed a green permit for people that do yard work, that you have to go through a class about fertilizer. And so that way, if you have a yard person, you can say, do you have a green permit? And that, that allows you a real simple question to ask your yard people, or to make sure. But that, I think it's brand new.
Yeah, I was just in a meeting with Orange County, Kimberly was on that too. So we were talking about that and their decal program, and I asked him to send me more information on that, so.
Did I describe it correctly, Brandon, Kimberly?
I think it's actually the Green Industry Best Management Practices that governs herbicide or any kind of fertilizer applications. Is that the decal, I know it had more components than just that particular license. But yeah, there is already a state requirement for that. And one of the topics that we took as a possible action item from that meeting, which great to see you there, by the way, I was so happy that you made it, was a consumer end of that. So educating the consumer that your lawn person must have this endorsement. So that the consumer end, just like post-hurricanes, there's always those big PSAs about, hiring licensed contractors, same premise, but downsized. So most of our discussions for that particular program and development for those campaigns are what's going to come out in 2023. So I know that some of this funding that we're discussing could go towards partnering with IFAS, and I think it's 5-county cohort right now that we're at, so.
Cool. Thank you. Virginia, did you have something you wanted to add? Okay. Courtney, did you have something?
I was just going to say that, Keep Brevard Beautiful did the lagoon-friendly lawns, and they certified commercial lawn businesses, and those lists are on theirs. I think it's kind of fallen off a little bit, but it was a pretty good program. One of the things that Susan mentioned was the door hangers, and our city is small enough for us to do door hangers because we're only 11,000 people, but I mean it did take several volunteers over a couple days to do the city. So I was wondering if, obviously the county can't do that, so if we could maybe create a grant to HOAs, like I'm sure Tortoise Island would probably want to do something like that. We have plenty of HOAs around in the county that would want to do some type of education campaign, or at least make the door hangers available to them and print them for them and give them to them so they can pass them out. Or even some cities, and, they can do sections if they have a volunteer group, something like that. And I can send over you the door hanger that we created, but it was basically fertilizer on one side and excess irrigation on the other. And really simple, and we got a good response from it. So that would be another idea, is just to kind of give a budget for print materials to hand off to community groups and HOAs and municipalities to see if they want to help get that word out with direct targeting.
Susan?
For example, I have a friend that just built a home off a tropical trail opposite of Torres Island, and she didn't know a lot about the lagoon, and I said, hey, here's Lagoon Loyal. So I think maybe if we could find like people that are buying new houses like on a monthly basis on like tropical trail and they're on the lagoon. And then second, what Courtney was saying about the door hangers, maybe reaching out to the Brevard Public Schools. I know they do the science projects. My daughter goes to Delora, and I went to Satellite, and I think that would be a neat little thing for the beach communities, or any of the schools, but specifically the beach. At Satellite, when I was there, I was on Eco Sea Club, and that was something for awareness to get the students aware, and they go home and tell their parents.
And they get their community service hours.
Okay. I had some, Dr. Windsor, did you have? Okay. I have just a few questions that I wanted to ask, and then some comments. Virginia, and for everybody who's playing along at home, and here on the committee too, there on our rainbow chart, which we get every quarter, it does list our education projects. And so, Virginia, looking at that, it's got our total is 2.4 million. And so it looks like, as of now, we've spent 700,000 of that. And by the way, that 2.4 is about 0.25%, maybe 0.24% of the entire expenditures. So it's not even 0.5%. Nor do I think nor do I think we're going to approach 0.5%. So if you round it, it'll probably always end up being 0% if you round it. But my question, Virginia, is so being at this is year 5, and there's only 700,000 spent. Are we on track to spend all that is budgeted, or is there already some wiggle room or some funds that we can, that we can just add to different projects?
So there is some wiggle room, but let me, not as much as you may think. So about $1 million of that 2.4 million was just added in the 2022 plan for the zoo programs to support oysters, clams, seagrass, living shorelines, all that. And so that, a big chunk of that 2.4 is just getting started. So that's, and then for the 2 of the 3 existing programs, there was, an initial chunk of money in year 1 to develop the programs, and then an annual amount for each of the 10 years. For 2 of them, there was also a bump up in year 6 to evaluate the programs, create new content as needed. And so, this is the time to do that, to rethink the content, to rethink how we reach, who the audience, how best to reach the audience. So there is that money that's built in to the system already. But we're not too far, but we're a little behind on grass clippings, but we're pretty on target for
everything else.
Yeah.
Okay, so other than the bump up in year 6, which I love, evaluate mid-course and see if there's any changes. Other than that, we're pretty tight with our number.
Correct.
Okay, and I would just like to make a request, I guess, on our rainbow table. Terry's not here. Is she here virtually?
She's
but
not.
anyways, if we could, Virginia, maybe you could take this down. For years that a project is not around, can we just gray that out and not put 0? The reason is because I'm looking at the chart now, and it shows $0 were spent in 2017, 2018 for that Brevard Zoo program, and if it wasn't around in those years, not only was $0 spent, it wasn't even on our radar. So that would be great for me to see, oh, well, that was just added, so that is in a different category than everything else. Real quick, does the committee kind of agree with that? I don't want them making changes on my own. Okay, I think that would be an easy one for us to look at. Yeah.
I had a quick question on the stormwater pond. I know that we have the stormwater tax. Could we take the money from a stormwater tax and put it towards that? Would that help us for the marketing?
I mean, we could work in association with the county stormwater department to ask them, but that's their funds, those aren't.
Okay.
Right, and we already do a lot of that coordination. The county's stormwater program can only spend their dollars, which are collected from the unincorporated area, on outreach for the unincorporated residents. The cities mostly have their own stormwater programs and cover their areas. We do have a consortium with 8 of the municipalities that we work with them to, there's no sense in everybody having a table at Indian River Lagoon Day, passing out the same information. So we collaborate to try to, make the most of everybody's available funding.
And the stormwater water program does contribute to Lagoon Loyal as well, so they are using the funds to cover the topics that we can't cover.
Okay, well, hold on, Stephanie, can I, so I had, okay, so that was a question with that. So it sounds like there are some year 6 funds that are already in the plan to kind of course correct, if you will, with new or different content. Okay, so.
Specific to fertilizer and.
Programs that we already have.
Sorry, just fertilizer.
Just fertilizer.
Just fertilizer.
Okay, not even septic system maintenance education?
They didn't have
There's no year 6 built into that? Okay. Okay. And then a couple other things. Charles, I love.
But we are.
I think the septic initially was like a 5-year program was suggested, and then we expanded it out to 10 years, so that's why it didn't have that bump up. We kept the same budget, but put it out.
And then grass clippings, we have some funds there that we haven't spent.
Yeah, because there was a delay.
So
with
that could be
COVID.
reallocated to.
So there's some grass clippings that we could reallocate?
Yeah, there was 1 year where with COVID and they weren't able to do much work.
Okay. Do we know, Virginia, are we talking tens of thousands? Probably roughly?
20,000, I think, yeah.
20?
I think about that, yeah.
Okay. So Charles, I like your idea about a sign. I know for those of us that were on the original committee, we talked about planting signs. What I think would be good in Virginia, if we did add that to the contract, which I would be for, I think it would be great if the sign had a common look. The only problem is if we require contracts to have that, I wouldn't want every different contractor to have a different look. So maybe, and this is going to kind of go along with what some other stuff I'm going to ask, is if we do increase our expenditures or maybe even change expenditures, I think we should try to see if we can work with MTN or 142 or somebody to help us with those designs, make those designs, even the county's marketing or advertising or communications department to make sure that it can look good and then look the same uniform around the county. And also include other information. If we're going to put up a sign, I'd love to give multiple bang for our bucks. So, in other words, have the Lagoon Loyal program, have some of the other programs we have on that sign. Virginia, were you going to?
Yes, if I may. So a lot of the state grants or other grants require that their program logos go on those signs. And so, as we work with all these different partners on these projects and they are pooling financial resources from many places, I don't think that we're going to have a lot of good success in saying your sign must look like this.
Okay.
We can say you need to have a sign and somewhere on your sign, we need the swirl logo, and it needs to be at least X percent of the area of your sign, or, some sort of guidelines like that. But I don't,
As far as dictating the specifications. Okay, maybe a color scheme? I don't know, my favorite color is purple. I'd love to see that all the way around. No, I'm joking.
I mean, a lot of the folks already have a standard design.
For their
that-
municipality or
Yeah.
we do.
organization, okay.
And I mean, just to give you an example, the project that we're constructing now has, I think, 5 funding sources. So they all are on that sign,
Yeah. With their
so-
designated size, which
Yeah,
makes
And
any additional
sometimes
text
swirl
or
is the big
anything
funder,
fine.
and sometimes swirl is, 10%.
Swirl's actually
of
the smallest
yeah.
funder.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. All right, well, thank you. Again, as Terry say, I retract my suggestion, or my comment. Hold on, Kimberly, I'm sorry. And then, so, the other thing is, I wanted to thank, I talked to Brandon and Terry and Lou and MJ from Indian River Lagoon Coalition. I talked to the Space Coast FPRA, so I wanted to thank them. I talked to MTN, so I've kind of asked around about this. And what I'd like to ask or look for in the motion that we have is I'd like to see us try to maximize the effectiveness of what we're currently doing. So I talked to Brandon and Terry, and what I'd like to ask is any presentations that the county does, that they maybe send out an email to all of us to see if anybody is available to be present at those. Because I think to that education of what we've done and who we are, I think that is an important part. But I think that having us attend one of those events, it doesn't increase the cost. So Virginia or Brandon, I'd like to request that or have that in the motion, if that's okay with everybody, that at least one or even 2 people from the same lane attend those events. I think that would be good. Also, Brandon, I think it would be nice if we could see maybe quarterly numbers on some of our outreach already for things that we can get. So in other words, like, Facebook posts seen or new likes or new follows on our Facebook page, maybe website views. I think things like this will allow us to see how well we're doing or how well we're not, and then allow us to kind of course correct throughout the year. I also, and I saw last night, you did a post yesterday for today's meeting, and so I think for us, what I'd like to do, and maybe have 30 seconds at the beginning of every meeting where we share that post or try to do it the night before. Again, I think that there's things that we can do, and I don't do it now. I don't share the post on our Facebook, but I think there are things that we can do to increase the reach without much of a cost.
Yeah, there'll be a post on Monday reminding everyone about Terry's presentation on Tuesday, so you can share that one.
Oh, yeah. But I think.
Yeah, and the newsletter is coming out on Tuesday as well.
Okay.
So you can share those.
And I love the newsletter too. I think that's great. And again, I think seeing numbers on those and just having them in the packet, we don't necessarily need to take time, but I think that kind of shows, where we are and how we're doing, which I think is important. And then the last thing, I'll let Stephanie and Kimberly and Susan talk. I know, I'm sorry, or Courtney. I would be for, when we're looking at expenditures, I think, as everyone said, the mailers, not so much. I think streaming advertisements and radio advertisements might be good. I think a lot of us preach to the choir when we go out and we give presentations, and so I think finding ways to reach people that don't really see it coming, and for lack of a better way, is good. So I think that the streaming and radio is good, and bus wraps, Courtney, if you guys have had success with that. So those would kind of be ones that I would be looking for. Okay, so now I think it was Courtney, Stephanie, and then Susan? Did you have?
So if we did, I mean, this is all pretty inexpensive, but pretty, it gets out into the public quite a bit. So if we did these suggestions with removing the mailers, we're looking at up to $50,000 a year annually. And so would any of these require, because I know the bus routes require to be designed, would that be included in the current contract we have with our advertising companies? Or would we have to include another cost for all that? If we did the bus wraps and ads and all that?
I mean, we can work out our task order with them to say, we want to target these certain activities and work that into the cost, but I mean, it would affect what other, they might have to cut costs and other things that they're already doing.
Okay, understood.
And I think year 6, again, there is some additional funds in year 6 that we could be used to, to design it, and then the 50,000 a year or whatever.
And some of those individual things, we gave the cost per thousand, but some of them have caveats, like you have to do it for so many months, or,
Right.
For example, the mailers, they had, it was, to get to the city of Melbourne, if you put it in the utility inserts, it was $9,000 just to get, one mailing out. So it was, quite
I
costly.
don't even look at my bill. I get it by email and I pay it online.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even open it, so, but I do think that there's a lot of, I agree with Vinnie. I think there's a lot of something to get out of the streaming ads, social media ads. I think with social media would at least get people on our page. That's another good thing about it, is when you push it out to people who normally might not go out and seek this information, it's shoved in their face, and then they might start liking it, and that's generally how pages are built, is through ads, at least the followers. So I think the social media ads, the radio ads, and then the bus benches, interior bus ads, and bus wraps, and I think if we just started with that, that's 50,000 a year, and see if we could try to find that
And
money.
I think to go to that, and Kimberly, I would love to see, Courtney, along with that, I'd love to see us do it for maybe what the requirement time is, or maybe for a year, and look at our numbers. I think, again, the thing with any sort of education campaign, it's important to see how you're doing.
Yeah.
And course correct. So maybe if we did it for a year at that level,
Right.
Courtney, then next year, if our numbers on the website blow up, then we're like, well, maybe we give a little bit more
Exactly.
to keep it going.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Kimberly, Susan, I didn't mean to interrupt. Do you have something you want to add, or was it Susan only?
No, it was me. I was actually back when you were discussing the sign logistics. Is there anything keeping us from doing it in-house and just having, I know you don't have somewhere to store 1,000 signs, but instead of outsourcing that this is a Lagoon project sign, could we not just create a sign specific? They're not a high dollar item to order 100 signs. I don't think there would be any more than 100 projects ever going on at once. Some of those signs would need replaced after so many, uses. But then also just if it was a cost factor, an additional $10 flat fee, just added in for the sign on the contractor's end, or an option to do that, instead of just placing our logo on other signs that are already very busy and may not grasp that attention that we want to get for a Sorrel project specifically. Has that been discussed prior, or is that an option? Again, logistically, I don't know which ones of you would be overseeing that. And then again, there would have to be somewhere to store those if there were, a large order placed all at once.
I think most signs are project specific, to be honest. That's how ours are developed. I don't know if the county does anything different. And the county makes our signs, so.
Right, but
we just order them for the county.
in addition to that project specific, just a sign that has our Sorrel logo and funds from tax dollars. Just very simple messaging, very basic, in addition to any other signs that may be there that have a collaborative of organizations coming together.
Yeah.
Courtney, would you as a municipality have and I don't mean to say you speak for entire, there's a council as well, but as a municipality, would you have an issue with us asking to put a sign at a project along with any other signage that you'd have to put up?
No. We wouldn't have a problem with that. I think most cities are very supportive of the tax and want people to understand that money's coming from the Lagoon
What's being
Fund.
done.
Yeah.
Virginia, did you?
So, we have, you're getting quotes from printers for the, this size corrugated plastic sign to go up at the folks that are receiving, I'm going to call them MATS grants, the septic upgrades and sewer connections and those sorts of things. What size sign are you talking about, and how would it be erected?
I was talking about just a yard stake sign, like estate sale, garage sale type of sign. Obviously, the scope of the project, depending on the size, maybe that would need to be adjusted. But any project is going to have a main entry area or a main visibility site as passersby, would be able to recognize that. So again, just a simple lagoon tax. This is your sorrel board at work, your money, kind of simple messaging in addition to whatever signs. If there are other options for signs, I mean, I'm not a sign expert, so I definitely don't know what you've looked at as far as options, but just basic. I mean, just, something, again, would still be more impressionable than just our logo in addition to 3, 5, 10 other logos, and not to necessarily negate the collaboration sign as well, but just in addition to any project that is funded.
So we could certainly take a handful of those signs and put them up at the projects that are under construction. Coordinate with who's in charge of those projects and see if we can put those up and then gather some feedback on whether they're visible enough, whether they're in the way, whether they just get squashed because they're yard signs on a giant construction site. Or
there could be something comparable to whatever other signage is already there. So if it's a huge project and there's a banner sign, do something comparable to that. Again, you're looking at budget, $100 for a decent sized
My
banner.
experience with construction signage is, it's a sheet of plywood on 4x4s.
Yep.
And, 4x8, it's a
They're
very
big.
large
Yeah.
item, right? Sunken concrete and.
Right, and again, that's to house banners if there's not an actual physical standing location. But a lot of these places, especially like you're saying with Matt's grants, for that signage for homeowners, there's a lot of projects, on a lot of different scopes that I still think would benefit from something individual and freestanding that was just simplified, that was just sorrel specifically. Just a thought and suggestion. And it's great to know you have some of them already coming down. So maybe we could use those on a few projects. And like I said, like you said, get some feedback on how that goes.
Okay. Susan and then Charles? Yeah. Oh, Stephanie? Sorry.
It doesn't appear that we have anything in this initial plan that we have for the door hangers. And I do think that was a great idea, was to add, to print door hangers, provide them to the entities that might use them. And I was also going to say maybe one specifically that says you're out of compliance. I love what Todd had to say about the fact of specifically targeting and the data that he has on that. So to say, you're overwatering, and we know it. So something to that effect. And again, if we provided those to the municipalities, the code enforcement, maybe that would encourage them to actually use them.
I know code enforcement does have some door hangers for certain purposes when people are out of compliance, and they put those out.
It's definitely, I like that. I'd love the door hanger to say, you can save money by not watering as much because according to our records, you don't need to. But I think that's good. I think there may be, if we give them to the municipality, I'd want to make sure that they have the staff and the ability to hang them. I think it's a great idea. I actually was going to call the city of Melbourne and be like, hey, can you do this after? Because I think it's a great idea, looking at their numbers comparative to your neighbors and see who's got that spike of use of water. Susan.
Yeah, the door hangers, especially that the weather is cooler. I'm door knocking now for candidates, so I can use the exercise and enjoy the cooler weather. I'm not sure if it was Stephanie or Courtney about the HOAs, if we could implement, for example, like Viera, there's a couple different HOAs. You have Suntree, Baytree. So like in Satellite Beach, I'm not sure how many HOAs, just to try to find out the HOAs and really get them involved.
Agreed. I like that.
Okay, and so is that more of a staff thing than reaching out to HOA, or not as much as a cost additional advertising and stuff,
I don't think it
right?
would be an additional cost. I would just think like, I guess part for an action plan for, like, my parents live in Suntree, so they have the Suntree Master HOA, and then they have the specific neighborhood, but there's like send something to Suntree HOA, and then they distribute it to all their little sub-neighborhoods, and like and then I know in Merritt Island, they have East and North Merritt Island HOA, which is huge. I mean, there's thousands of people, so those are just some of the main ones, so.
Yeah, no, they're good. That's how we got that guy Craig Wallace in the audience. He was, took it amongst himself to act with his neighbors. So, Courtney?
I mean, if we did the social media ads, you could put the option for HOAs to be able to get involved this way on social media, and people see that, call their HOA, hey, we should do this. So I think there's some that'll work together, if we put the money to it and our time and effort for the next year.
Okay.
And then Stockton's here. We could bug Stockton before he leaves to get Coco involved.
Oh, he's already hooked in. Okay, so I know there is a public comment card filled out for this. So Lou, why don't you go ahead and talk, and then I'll give you your 3 minutes, and then we'll go ahead and see if there's a motion on the floor.
Okay, great. Are we on? Is this on? Yeah, okay. Hi, and Lou Kontnick, Brevard Indian River Lagoon Coalition, and I really wanted to start out by just saying thanks. And thanks to the COC, thanks to Sorrel staff, thanks to the County Commission for the outstanding program on the half-cent sales tax. Thanks also for the open science-based process that you use to identify and execute the most important projects. But more important than that, thanks to our voters for actually approving the tax in 2016. And for putting our money where our mouth is. I think this discussion, it's been good, and I like a lot of it, because I think this information is critically important. Communication is what the voters who authorized this effort really deserve, and it's what we have to have in order to keep their support. I think we need to improve in this area, though. I think I think we can improve in this area. The coalition, the Brevard Indian River Lagoon Coalition, actively communicates about Sorrel. Its project's complete, its informative website, and open meetings, which are going on right now, its social media, and its personal presentations. For example, we pushed out information about the recently updated dashboard, which I think much better shows the progress of the overall effort. We pushed it out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, explaining it throughout the community. And I'm glad to say it got better reception than most of our posts. Likewise, I think our second highest post was one we did a couple of years ago about the fertilizer blackout. So, and we look forward to explaining the story maps and other materials and a lot of the things that have come up here today. The basic point I'm making is that the coalition, but not just the coalition, a lot of organizations, and some of them you're already actively working with, I'm sure. I mean, I've heard a lot of it here today. But there's the ability to go ahead and force multiply in what you're doing. And so we reach a community, the fishermen reach a community, and I think we want to distribute the information that we have, whether it is, septic grants or whether it is, I guess I'm running out of time here. But so, and I think that we have an opportunity to improve that force multiplication, essentially by having Sorrel work with some of the groups like us to go ahead and facilitate the easy access to the information, the videos, the photographs, the data, so on and so forth. I think we can make this force multiplication more effective. And what you're talking about goes right along with it. So with that, thanks again.
Thank you, Lou. Okay, so really good discussion. Eric, yes.
Sorry, I just had a quick question as to whether or not, are like environmental considerations in place for which types of marketing materials we use, et cetera? Like, are the signs that we put on side of yards, are they made out of plastic or something eco-friendly? Are those kinds of items under consideration for these types of processes?
Great question. Yes. Virginia? No. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of those yard signs and things are going to be some sort of plastic. So I don't know of any companies out there offering a eco-friendly plastic, or because I know a lot of those plant plastics melt in the heat, so it wouldn't be too good in a yard sign.
Anybody watching at home, we need an entrepreneur to come up with a recycled plastic sign that can withstand Florida summers. Terry, and then Kimberly. Hold on, Terry's got his hand raised virtually. Terry. Let's see. Terry, we can't hear you. You are unmuted, but we can't hear you, unfortunately.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now. I just think you like saying, "Can you hear me now?"
Now I'm on the phone. I don't. Okay.
No, now we can't hear you. Now it's muted on Zoom. Can you unmute? Terry, we can't hear you. I see you talking. It's muted on Zoom.
He may not be able to hear you.
Everything. There's just too many buttons.
You're
How
good.
about now?
You're good.
We got
You're
you.
good. We got you.
All righty.
Don't hit anything.
Yeah. Feedback. I can't hear myself talk because I'm getting feedback. Listen, Lou hit on an important topic, but he, in my mind, he left out one of the most important things. So I think about this communication thing. We've been talking about it in two parts. It's really, I think, there's a third aspect. So we've been talking about what are the campaigns we have going on now, grass clippings and fertilizer and so on. And the second part was, how do we get the word out about the progress that we're making with those three things? But there's a third and bigger issue that Lou and the coalition and others are trying to address, and that is, getting information out to the public is like chipping at granite with a spoon. And every one of us, I think, on this committee, has been frustrated by talking with the public and hearing how much they say they don't know about what's going on, despite all these efforts, 5 years worth of trying to push the word out there. So one of the things that that the coalition is working on is to try to get a handle on what do people know and don't know about what's going on with the tax and with the environment, Save the Lagoon in general. And the second part, in my mind, that is more important is what do they think they would need? Because we're already doing all these things that we've talked about and making, not enough headway. So can we get some feedback from the public as to what else what do they need? I mean, short of going out and spoon feeding them, how do we get this information out there? So that's an important thing, and that's underway, and I'm hoping that we can make some progress with that. The second thing I would add, kind of contingent with this, we were talking about the presentations and talking about what the plan is doing, and what accomplishments the plan has achieved and so on. One of the key things I think in the messaging, and we've done it a little bit with fertilizer and with irrigation and so on, dog poop, but I think there's a broader messaging, which is government, somebody said it earlier, you know, people are counting on government to solve this problem, and government isn't going to solve it. You know, it's going to take a change in personal behavior across the board. And that, I think, needs to be a key part of the messaging going forward, is it's not enough to, you know, pick up your dog poop and wash your car on the grass. But, you know, you've also, as a citizen, you've got to be engaged and involved with all the other things that are going on, the development projects especially, that are continuing to threaten the environment. Because until we get to that point, all this money we're spending is just band-aiding a wound that's going to continue to bleed. So that's the end of the sermon in the first part.
Okay, thank you, Terry. Stephanie, did you have something? Oh, Kimberly, I'm sorry.
It's okay. I've only known you forever, Vinny. I was just to Eric's comment. One is that there is a post-use recycling program for corrugated yard signs. I know after the elections, Orange County and Orlando, they do a big push in multiple collection sites throughout the region there. I don't know of anything Brevard has comparable to that. I actually loaded up a bunch of election signs and took them to Orange County a few years back. But then also, I think that would be a really important aspect to consider in approval of future projects, is that environmental aspect, and is that paper use, ink use, printing is so huge. I mean, sometimes, obviously, you know, when we're doing communications, those are essential tools that we have to use. But just to be considerate of those aspects in the future of approving different projects and outreach, I think that's huge and key. So thanks for bringing that up.
And I think maybe if Keep Brevard Beautiful is watching, maybe they could do a post-election collection sign of driving to Orlando, because I think that's, pretty good. Yeah, but I think might be a great project for Brian and Keep Brevard Beautiful. Sorry, Brian. But anyways, awesome. Okay, and I think I'll say one thing, and I'll look for a motion. What I'd like to see, because our project plan, and Brandon, as he presented it, bases almost all our dollars, actually all our dollar expenditure on nitrogen or phosphorus removal. So I think what I'd like to see all our messages entail is some sort of action or some sort of direction to action. So in other words, if we were to say we've completed 87 projects, because I think it is important for people to see what's being done. I know for myself, if I face a task that seems like no one else is doing anything or it's insurmountable, it makes me not want to do actions towards it. And so I think we can combine messages to something like, you know, we've completed 97 projects to help with our sewer connection. What are you doing to help your sewer connection? Go to Lagoon Loyal. You know, I think there's a way to mix our messages together to make sure that there's a goal for our message.
Yeah.
And an action.
We've been trying to
towards
do
our
that.
message.
Yeah, so with our newsletter, you know, we'll put in, this is what we're doing, and here's, you know, go to Lagoon Loyal for things you can do to help out and amplify this benefit. So we've been trying to work that multi-messaging in. You'll notice on most of the videos we've been showing you to, we'll put the plug in for Lagoon Loyal at the end to drive people there.
I remember when the first plug was at the end, and we were like, that's amazing! Can we have every video have that? So, you know, that's I think for me, it's going to be important that whatever motion we pass, that it asks for some sort of action to be taken again, so we can look to tie it to pound of nitrogen or phosphorus removed. And I think Terry's point about working with other NGOs or other organizations, I think, as somebody else said, where we talk about an amount, but we don't micromanage. Courtney, was it you maybe that said we don't give the county marching orders, but said, look, can we use, you know, we'd like to see this amount go towards something, then the county can figure out if they want to work, or if an NGO comes to them, they can work with that NGO rather than us saying, we want it on this, done for this, and really pigeonholing them into doing exactly as we feel today. And I would like to see, again, some sort of sunset or measurement period in the end in a motion. I'm chair. I can't make a motion.
I was going to make a motion, but I forgot what it was. Actually, when I thought, and you know, maybe the discussion that's going on here is probably helpful for the county, for you all to be thinking about what you all are thinking about. but there was an awful lot of micromanagement going on here from this board. I thought what we were trying to do is get a budget to them and let them do the best they can with that budget to get the message out, using professionals who work in this field of advertising and communication. That's what I thought I was going to do when I was going to recommend that we pass a funding recommendation for all 5 of the options that were up there, all 5 of the disciplines, the grass clippings, the stormwater, the irrigation, I forgot what the others were off the top of my head.
Excess.
The excess irrigation. And that we go for the double funding levels. I'm not in concrete about the double funding levels, but I think that we would get a lot of bang for the buck. But I think that that's a good starting point for the discussion about the recommendation of the budget, and that budget be tied into, as all of our budgets have, and as staff has always done, per pound of nitrogen bang for the buck. That's my motion.
Okay. Courtney?
Can we add in these other options for the outreach?
Can we get a second before we?
I'll second.
Okay, so now Stephanie's got a second. Go ahead, Courtney.
Like, for the year, add in a $50,000 budget to include some of these other options. And so to include streaming of TV ads, social media ads, radio ads, bus benches, interior bus ads, and bus wraps.
Well, and so I think, and I think what Dr. Windsor was saying is that we add the 2 new ones, and then we double the levels of everything, all 5, and then let the county take our recommendations of those 5.
Oh, and whether or not they want to do this.
Well,
I understand what you're saying. Okay.
But again, with our recommendations of we'd like to see, action-based, we'd like to see it maybe done for a year and then reevaluate, those type of things.
Okay.
But I think the motion on the floor is to add the 2 and then double the levels of all 5.
But I have a quick question. real
Please.
quick. If we did that and they were able to use these other outreach options, could we include an additional budget for the social media ads to get the word out of what we're doing?
Right, we could.
Do you see what I'm saying? So it's 6,000 that would give them the ability to push out our videos, the meetings, everything that we're doing on an ad basis to get that in front of people more.
So maybe adding a 6th category that would be project completion actions based on our projects, right? So Facebook ads saying, we've done this, here's what you can do to continue to help us.
Correct.
Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah.
And so what level of funding would that 6th
It's 6,000 annual. I would just call it COC, just call it social media ads. So it's just to inform the public about the actions of the tax and what the
Okay.
tax has done.
And what they can do to
And
amplify
what they can
it?
do to amplify it, yeah.
Okay.
So
And what amount would you put on that?
I would start 6,000 for this year,
Okay?
and then we can adjust that next year if we think we need to.
Okay, so hold on. It sounds like there's an amendment suggested to Dr. Windsor.
My only question about that, couldn't you cover that with the double funding that I'm suggesting? At 6,000,
Those would be directed towards those specific education campaigns and not necessarily the
Okay,
general,
yeah, I have no objection to the amendment.
Stephanie?
And I'll agree
Second the
to the
amendment.
second.
Okay. Susan, and then Charles?
I agree to
And then
this
Terry.
second, what Courtney was saying. I was at an event last night, and I was talking to a friend. She's heading up a PAC for the school millage allocation. And a lot of times when you go to these events, when people hear the word tax, they freak out. And I was explaining to her, if you can message to the public, okay, hey, the there's no school bus drivers or things are breaking. So what Courtney was saying is explain it, like dumbing it down to the public, because I think if they understand, they're not going to be like, oh my gosh, there's a tax. So I think once people understand, like, oh, this is actually being completed, and just really keeping them up to date, that can help them be more supportive.
Okay.
And then having the money allocated for that specific project, because if it's lumped together, it may get lost, so that way it's specific for the public outreach.
Okay. Charles and then Terry.
Yeah, and I just wanted to kind of follow up with Courtney was saying, I think that sixth category is awareness, accomplishments. I think that's what we're trying to get out. And and I don't know which of those social medias or advertisements is the best. Like Dr. Windsor said, we're not the experts. It might be best left to those in the marketing world that you guys contract with to come up with what the best suggestions, best effective ones for that. And I want to make sure, though, that we do get the signs, that are at the project sites included in this somehow.
Okay, great. Terry?
Dr. Windsor is the memory for the committee, but it seems like several years ago when this topic first came up, didn't we get some pushback from the commissioners on using SORL funds to advertise the accomplishments of the plan as opposed to these, fertilizer and irrigation and so on specific topics? Am I making that up?
I think you're correct in your assumption, or your assertion. And so I think what I had recommended would be that any message that we put out, whether it's saying what we've completed, that there be a follow-up action in that same message. So it's not just we've completed these number of projects, but these are the number of projects we've completed for something, and here's what you can do. So again, it's not just educating, but about what we're doing, it's educating about what they can do using our success.
Okay, let's hope that flies. I mean, I'm optimistic, but...
Well, again, yeah, we can always see what the county commission says and work with them on this. And I think, again, at that level, at $6,000 for a year, and then an evaluation on that, that's a very small amount, in my opinion. Okay, so let's do this. No other comment from the committee. Virginia, I do want to take public comment, but I also want to make sure that you are comfortable with the motion that was presented as far as clear enough instructions, on how that is spent. If there's any clarifications you would like, but let me take public comment, and then if you want to do that. So is there any? Not in the motion. Our bylaws state we've got to take. So is there any public comment on the motion on the floor? Okay. Guess not. I got two cards and I thought they were for this, but we'll move on. Okay. So Virginia or Brandon, do you feel that as the motion?
Let me repeat what I think is the motion. We're going to double the funding for the remaining 5 years for the 3 existing programs. We're going to fund the 2 previously proposed but not funded programs at the double funding level. And we're going to add $6,000 of awareness budget that will include drivers to individual actions, and we will evaluate the success. I'm not sure we can, I'm hopeful we can use the budget for the programs to evaluate the success. That's what we're trying to figure out. How do we evaluate the success of that separately?
For social media, I think you just look at because we're trying to increase.
We just use like different QR codes so we can parse it out.
Or actually different,
Each ad. Yeah,
different analytics for our,
For each ad,
for the websites or for our story maps or for whatever it is individually, looking at a movement across the board. And then again, pointing them to things like Lagoon Loyal, which they have their own tracking.
We were just making sure we didn't need additional budget for that.
I don't think
But
you do.
I think we'll be okay.
Stephanie?
That was my question. Do you feel like 6,000 is enough? Or do you feel like we should increase it a little bit?
With the Lagoon Loyal, I think they're spending about $500 a month on boosting their ads and things, so I think, we'd be in that realm of 6,000 would be okay.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion and a second on the floor. And so anybody, final comments, or we'll take a vote? All right. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, great. Really good discussion, and I think the length of that discussion shows our commitment to making sure we spend our tax dollars efficiently, or the tax dollars efficiently. So thank you, everybody, for that discussion, and Brandon and the rest of your team for getting the data together. So, okay, let's go ahead and we'll move on. I think, yes, let's go ahead and move on. We may not need to take a bathroom break if we can kind of get through this, but we'll see how it goes. So the next item is I'm sorry, I'm flipping between a couple different PDFs here. We have our meeting schedule for 2023, the adoption of the meeting calendar. Virginia?
Right, so this would continue your monthly meetings on the third Friday of each month. The county commission takes a break in the month of June, which this committee has also done historically. In December, we have scheduled a meeting in December, but then if you're able to accomplish all the business of the plan update in November, the last several years, we've been able to cancel December. If we post the full schedule, we advertise the full schedule, then it's easy to cancel things throughout the year. It is much more difficult to obtain the meeting room and do the to add meetings later.
Motion to approve.
Okay,
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any public comment? All right. Oh, Eric, please. Or discussion, sorry, thank you.
Yeah, no, I'm not public, but the question I had doesn't really pertain to the 2023 schedule. Maybe we're going to hold this for later, but I know that there was some discussion as to whether or not we were going to meet next month because of the low development. Yeah. So I'm just checking in if this would be the time to bring that up, or if we're talking about that later.
Yeah, no, I think if we want to pass this motion on the 2023, and then the item right after that could be our next month's meeting. Okay, any other further discussion from the committee? Any discussion from the public? All right, so all those in favor of approving the 2023 meeting calendar as presented in the packet, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. Okay, so then let's do this. We'll go ahead and discuss the cancellation of the meeting next month. Again, we've got the MRC Low Impact Development Conference. So is there a motion to get us started for that?
I'll make a motion to cancel the next month's meeting.
Okay?
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second to cancel next month's meeting. Any discussion?
Do we know how many are going to be attending the meeting from the group?
I was going to be at the low impact design, but I was going to be here on Friday and just miss Friday, but I'd rather not be. So.
Anybody else?
Is there anything that's critical that's going to occur next month that we need to vote on?
So the only thing that is usually in order of business next month is the calendar, adoption of the calendar. So we went ahead and moved that up to today. So thanks for the question, but no, we're not aware of any annual business that needs to occur next month. However, I will use this moment to make a plug for those of you who have not responded about whether you want to renew your terms. I need to know by the end of the month. Thanks.
Which is 14 days. Got 2 weeks. Okay. So there's a motion and a second to cancel the meeting. Any public comment? Nobody wants to say, please, keep the meeting, please. Okay, all right. So then we'll go ahead and take a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. So the meeting goes ahead and gets canceled. What I'd like to do, just to keep Stockton waiting a little longer, if this is okay, is just move the hybrid meeting discussion up, because I don't think it's going to be a long one. So I'd rather go ahead and move that up, if that's okay, with everybody. And so just a point of information, we had one attendee today on Zoom. So the discussion and the way it was brought up, Virginia Brandon, I think the county, Logan and the county actually came to Virginia or Brandon to ask about this. This is really the first time that they've mentioned that this might be tough. And all through COVID, us moving rooms, they've been able to keep the meetings virtual and going. So I think when they came to us and requested that, it's something that I really wanted to see us discuss. So,
And just to one point, Vinny, the Zoom advertisement didn't get onto the calendar. There was an issue with the way it's submitted, and I'm working with IT on that. So I asked them to put it on this morning, but it didn't get on in advance as it normally did. It was put on our social media site though. So, but our Zoom attendance has been declining over the last few months.
Okay. All right. So, committee? Yes, Stephanie?
So does that mean that our committee members would also not be able to attend virtually?
That's for discussion. The way that the recommended motion was written was that committee members on special occasions could come in remotely. Public comment would not be allowed, specifically the way that it's written. Personally, I think if we're not going to allow the public to be able to ask questions, I kind of have an issue with us being able to, unless, of course, there's extenuating circumstances. But that's just my personal opinion. But the way it's written is that we would and presenters would be able to, if there were special situations.
It'd
And I
be
think
similar to how the county commission runs their meetings. So,
and I think presenters, I want to pipe people in from anywhere if they're the lead in their field, rather than us or the county or them having to pay to come here. I think that's fantastic. But I know I show up at every meeting, and I'm sorry, I always mess up the curve. But I think that I'd like to see us say, unless there's really extenuating circumstances, that not even the committee could be remotely unless they had an issue that was special case.
and we're also working with communications. There is a possible method through their TriCaster system to bring in a committee member who needed to attend remotely instead of doing through Zoom, making it a little easier on them. But we're trying to make sure it has all the capabilities we need. So we're looking into that currently. But Zoom would be an option in special circumstances if needed.
I'd like to go ahead and make a motion that we eliminate the Zoom meetings except under special circumstances.
Okay,
Second.
all right. Terry has his hand up. Terry?
Yeah, just is there anybody, what's the argument put forward for canceling Zoom meetings? Is it a big burden to staff or an expense, or is it just, we never did it before, so we're going to quit doing it going forward?
So it is a burden on staff in a few different ways. So with the communications, SCGTV, it's like running two different meetings simultaneously. So they're having to work with both the Zoom broadcast and their TV and website broadcast. So, and then just the logistics of trying to get all the Zoom links set up, sent out to the public. So we do have ways that the public can still watch virtually. They can watch on our Facebook channel live streamed, they can watch YouTube live streamed, and they can also watch on SCGTV either through cable or through the website. So there's plenty of ways for them to see the meeting virtually, just not a way for them to comment except through Zoom virtually. But we're trying to keep in, and there's, as, we've seen lots of sound issues on the Zoom meetings too, from the both presenters aspect and with the echo that comes through, and then trying to hear videos. We've run into a lot of different issues with technology and Zoom. So trying to just, streamline the process, make it easier. I have to come up here and mute every time someone talks from Zoom. So it's just a lot more effort on that, whereas if we just broadcast it out on our regular channels and then the public can still view it virtually, they'll have to come in person to make comments, or they can always email us with comments and we can share that with the committee.
Okay. Any discussion from our committee? Kimberly?
Just to confirm, you said anyone can comment ahead of time by email, so there is still communication available without the Zoom. And we've had, a few Zoom comments in this whole entire year that I recall?
I would say the last 3 months, we really haven't had any.
Yeah.
I believe when we were downstairs in the chambers, there were some few, but it's been few and far between.
Yeah, and all of your contact information is on the website now that you provided, so the public can reach out to you directly, or they can send an email to us through the Indian River Lagoon email, and we can send it out to the whole committee.
Okay. Any public comment on the motion on the floor? Craig?
Just a suggestion, Craig Wallace, the Brevard Indian River Lagoon Coalition. Just a suggestion, if you could allow people to either text in or email in during the session, if they had a comment on a specific thing that could somehow be made available to Vinnie. Just a thought.
Okay. Thank you, Craig. Well, my number is on the website, so people can blow up my phone during the meeting. And I think any ways we can increase our communication is great. But I do think, again, the county came to us for the first time asking us about this issue, and they have been so amenable to anything that we've asked. We actually, look at that, Rebecca is going to buck the trend, and she would like to speak, so we're going to have a public comment from Zoom land. So hold on, Rebecca, I'm going to allow you to talk. Rebecca?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
We can, yes. Good morning.
Okay, great. Thank you for taking my comment. Unfortunately, I'm from Melbourne. Danny Straub is normally on these meetings with me, and she's unexpectedly out of the office today. So she just wanted to make sure that we expressed our appreciation for the Zoom hybrid meeting format. It is very time-consuming for Melbourne to get up to these meetings, and we really try to make a point to have representation at every single one of the COC meetings. So we have appreciated the ability to attend remotely, and I know Danny has presented remotely and provided comment remotely. So I completely understand what Brandon and staff is saying regarding the burden of conducting a Zoom meeting, but here at Melbourne, we have really appreciated that opportunity that has provided for us. So thank you.
Okay. Rebecca, yes, thank you. And we appreciate Melbourne and other municipalities who are always here at these meetings for questions that come up. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So there's a motion on the floor. Second, we'll go ahead and vote. All those in favor of canceling the Zoom except for extenuating circumstances, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Passes unanimously. Great. Okay. So we've got 19 minutes. Stockton, you've got 3 of those? No, I'm joking. All right. So we'll go ahead and we'll have the contingency funding request of the additional funds for the city of Cocoa. I think what I'd like to do, Stockton, if you wanted to address or speak on that, and then we can go ahead and go into a discussion on that.
Yeah, I'm primarily here to answer questions.
Hopefully you all can follow the math in the request. Again, just to clarify, this is not a bidded amount. This is an engineer's estimate. And so based on the engineer's estimate, we were approximately $1 million short in terms of the budget. If you assume that half of that would be made up from the SORL funding and then half from match funding, that's how we got to the $543,373 dollar number there. So again, just here to answer questions if you have those of me.
Great, thank you. All right, so does anyone have any questions? Virginia, I think that there's so much information in the packet that we probably are good. If anyone would like a clarification. Courtney?
I just wanted to make sure we had that dollar amount in our contingency funds to make up this.
Yeah, so let me, just for the record, so, the policy allows, has a process for requesting up to a 10% contingency. And so this amounts to a 9.7% increase, so it's within that 10%. The math in the write-up, explains that a few houses, the edges of the project have shifted a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And so what is currently proposed by the city is 150-something thousand short of what's already in the budget. So they're really asking for about 400,000 more than what's in the plan. So it's even less than that 9.7%. You've got the inflation contingency and the 5% contingency, so it's well within what is already reserved in the plan. So it's not going to take money away from anybody else.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure, because I don't think there's a city in the state of Florida that isn't experiencing the same thing City of Cocoa is experiencing with this project. So I'm definitely for it. I think it's a very important area that needs to be done. So.
Let me just add one more thing. Because this is over $100,000, the committee's role is to make a recommendation that we would then take to the county commission. It's their decision. If it's under $100,000, you have the authority to make that recommendation to staff, and we proceed. But this will go to the county commission.
Okay. Stephanie?
I move that we approve the increase, or recommend to the county commission that the increase be approved.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion from the committee? Okay. Any discussion from the public? All right. So we'll go ahead and vote on the motion on the floor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? All right. Passes unanimously.
All right, thank you.
Stockton, thank you. Good to see you. All right. So now we will go on to general public comment. All right. Everybody was so riveted by the discussion. There is no public comment.
You don't have cards? You don't have
Oh,
cards?
I'm sorry. Thank you. I did get the cards. No, Jackie sent them to me. That's on me. I apologize. All right, let me look. See, Craig, people were already blowing up my phone. No, Jackie takes pictures of the cards and sends them to me. So we do have public comment. The first one will be Lou. Oh, he left. Okay, we'll hold Lou's card. The next one is, of course, our good friends from Sunnyland. Steve.
I just want to say, Steve Hancock from Sunnyland, I think you guys are probably had a gut following me by now, but I just wanted to report that we have submitted our application for the muck removal project in Sunnyland, got it in before the deadline. And I want to especially thank the folks from Brevard Natural Resources, Terry Breeden, Matt Culver, Augustin Sebastian, Gene Allen for their help in the calculations and so forth. Still a long ways to go on that, but we're grateful to the committee for helping us, for their encouragement in getting us this far, and also, probably even a number of other players who have supported us through this journey, Dr. Fox and Dr. Ebel, and just a lot of people that have, kind of guided us through this process. I was going to make it a walk-off home run and just leave with with that thank you, but I see I've got almost 2 minutes left. Just in hearing about all this discussion about, do we do bus wraps or do we do Valpak coupons or whatever, I got to say there's nothing like one-on-one communication, neighbors talking to neighbors. Our secretary here, Roxanne Perkins, she has in the last, 2 weeks, she has gone around and knocked on every door in the neighborhood. And there's about 275 houses in Sunnyland. She's spent time talking to people. We've actually started, we're not quite sure how we're going to structure this, but people are already volunteering some funding. So we're going to start like an environmental, canal, trust fund or something like that. We're trying to figure out how we do that, but homeowners are actually coming to the plate. And I just think, one of the things I thought about when I heard the messaging, so like the hang tag, hanging a tag that says you're out of compliance. I can tell you when you talk to people, I could help you with the messaging there. That's not, I think there's better ways to communicate. A lot of times appealing to their self-interest, that, hey, this is about, your property values. This is about, your way of life really here and what you enjoy. You living near the water and you get to enjoy living near the water, and that's a nice thing. Living near an open sewer, that's not so great. So, I hear a lot of these things. I just want to say that I think somehow, and I'd be happy to work with this, work with folks on this. If they want to try to figure out how do we reach these HOAs and get out and get that messaging on a more one-on-one level, I would love to participate in something like that. So, anyway, thank you.
Great, thank you, Steve. The
Steve-
proverbial carrot versus the stick discussion.
Wanted to let Steve know too, your Sunnyland video was just put on our Facebook and YouTube page yesterday, so to show how your community's been helping out.
And just to let you know, the internet is broken today because of the video, so thank you very much for that. No, joking, but Steve, if you and Sunnyland could, if you guys figure out and go through the process of creating a trust fund, please put those steps online, or Brandon, Virginia, if we can capture that. Again, nobody likes to recreate the tire or should recreate the tire. And so if Sunnyland is going through the process of going door to door with messaging, working with attorneys, I'm sure, to set up some sort of trust fund, that would be great to capture that, to allow others to ride that wheel we've already created, or somebody has created. So Steve, thank you guys in Sunnyland for your continued work for the Lagoon. And so while we're on Sunnyland, let's just go Roxanne. Let's keep the Sunnyland times rolling.
Roxanne, treasurer, working with Steve. Steve's been working on our dredging of the canals. I've been going door to door to introduce myself to, mostly it was the new neighbors, but I have realized that there's a lot of people that have lived there for years, since the 70s, and they tell me stories about how clear the water was and the oysters, and now how horrible our water is. So we have had a lot of people who are interested in cleaning the canals. We're looking right now with Fuji Clean, who have been so impressed by the amount of people that are putting in the septic tanks, which I have a new one, thank you, that they're looking at ways to help us with irrigation in the canals to stir the water up and get oxygen back in the water. Our fish are floating at the top because there's no oxygen in our water. We're also working with a company, a green earth company, with a product that releases a bacteria, an anaerobic bacteria, which means it doesn't require oxygen to thrive, and it eats the muck. So it will help reduce the amount of muck so that when we finally do get dredging done, we can work hand in hand together. I think dredging's not going to solve our problem, obviously. Neither are the grass clippings or the fertilizer or the septic tanks. We have to educate everybody in our community that they have to do all of these things. We've just ordered signs from the Lagoon Loyal to put in our community to remind them where to wash their car. And they may have lived there since the 70s, but they didn't know in the 70s that they were doing things that were wrong. And we have new people who just moved in from Texas across from us, across the canal from us. And I saw her rake her grass the other day and throw it in the canal. I think she thinks she's feeding the manatees or doing something good. And the neighbor was watching with me, and of course, our first instinct is to go yell at her. But she doesn't know any better, so we need to educate her. And we would like to put together packages for new homeowners and maybe the existing homeowners that have this literature in it. So I don't want to duplicate, spend all this time if you guys already have things. But if we have things that tell us about why you shouldn't put the grass clippings in, that I can give to a new homeowner and say, you have a new backyard. It's a new responsibility that you're not used to from living in Texas or Indiana, where I come from. So you need to do things a little bit differently and approach it that way instead of being, immediately mad at her. Maybe that would help. Maybe we could reach out to the new residents and welcome them and then explain to them why they can't throw all their grass clippings in. I'm also looking for information about the lawn services. When I see a lawn service mowing grass and they're shooting it in the canal, I go over and yell at them and tell them they're not going to be welcome to work in Sunnyland anymore if they can't follow our guidelines. But I don't know if I can do that. They've been believing me, so they've been just because I'm bitchy and I'm like, don't do that. But today someone said something about I can turn these people in. I mean, I don't know if we need to put on our website for all of our homeowners, these are the people you should use for lawn service. These are the people who recognize how important it is that you don't throw grass in the canal, because these companies, they don't live on the canal. It's not their backyard that they're destroying. It's just a job to them. So I'm just looking for ways to help reach our community, the people, the 300 houses that we have, and if you have literature that we can put in these welcome packets, that would be great.
Thank you, Roxanne. Real quick answer. I know there are some new story maps on our webpage, and I know one of them talks about that, or is that graphic that we put out in the Brevard Now magazine. Remember we had that 2-page ad? But there's a bunch of things, Roxanne, to answer your question, that have a bunch, I think on our website, and I think Indian River Lagoon Coalition had a flyer that they were going to see if different closing offices, I think, with the discussion was going to have those. Courtney?
Our sustainability board in Satellite Beach just created a new homeowners brochure, and I'll be glad to send you the document, the electronic document, and you can take our logo off and slap your logo on. And so we'll I'll send it over to Virginia's office, and you all are welcome to use that, so you don't have to recreate it.
And Virginia, maybe if we could add that to our website too, Brandon, or some sort of document depository where people could just look alphabetically. Because once word gets out, we can just quickly send them to our, document repository on our website.
We can send you the door hangers we use too, if you want to rip that off. It's always better to use something that's already done.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so now we've got 2 more speakers, Lou and Craig. Oh, Lou's good. Craig?
Craig Wallace, Brevard Indian River Lagoon Coalition. Sunnyland, I love what you're doing. I mean, me coming into, really getting started in this from an HOA perspective, I know exactly what you're going through, and spreading the word on what you're doing and getting others involved in it, I think that's one of the things I was going to mention this morning. So anyway, so shifting gears a bit, well, one other thing on the communications, I think the packaging of these things in going out to communities, because whether it's an HOA or any other community, getting the message out there, and it takes people to go out there and do it. And that's something the coalition is pledged to do, is to go out to communities and have a message. Having a presentation that somebody can give that addresses these things, and having the leave behinds, the door hangers or the brochures or whatever it is, I think that's a critical part of the communications process. And we'll help to contribute to that. We already have one that Lou's handing out for that was done in conjunction with the realtors that they use for communications with new residents. So there's all kinds of ways to getting to them. Shifting gears here a bit, I wanted to talk about a couple of things the coalition is doing coming up. We're going to do another Straight Talk. Our last one in Melbourne was very successful. This one's going to be in Titusville, the second week of November. We haven't picked a specific date yet or a venue, but I just want to let you know that that's coming up. And we will have probably request to the staff to do some presentations as well as a tabling event for that. So some of these things that we're talking about, the handouts and stuff, we'll definitely want to have those there. I know the Low Impact Development Conference was mentioned. This is really key. Now, this is not designed for the average citizen to go to. It's more directed towards municipalities and utilities. But getting participation in that, and then where do we go with low impact development from there? Keeping that, current in everybody's minds, because that's a key part. We got the septic and then we got the stormwater we really need to address. One other thing we're doing, two other things we're doing communications-wise, was we started up, one of our board members has done podcasts in the past. And so he's now got podcasts that are out there and it's called Voices for the Lagoon. And the last one that was done, Matt did a great job of explaining all these things about the septic tank program, and so that's one you should listen to, but there's a number of them on there. There's one about the history of the lagoon, the Ace Indians, and that sort of thing. The other thing we're doing is with WFIT, we're doing Lagoon Minutes, and that's something that MJ started back a couple of years ago, but those are available in the morning and in the afternoon on WFIT. So there's a number of different programs we got getting messages out there. So if you got ideas on things that you would like to have broadcast out there, please get them to the coalition. Thank you very much.
Great. Greg, thank you.
Vinny, if I could.
Sure, Lou.
Okay. I'll just mention one other thing that the coalition is doing, and that is that we have launched, and many of you may know about this, but the Lagoon Voices, which is, and I'll go ahead and pass a bunch of these around. It really is the beginning of an advocacy army for support of the lagoon, nonpartisan, but to go ahead and praise and recognize our leaders that are doing the right thing for the lagoon, and also to call attention and to advocate where leaders are not doing things in support of the lagoon. And so what I've passed around is a little flyer inviting people to go ahead and take a look at what we're doing on the website. We want to build that army. The lagoon cannot speak for itself. In terms of pushing policy, we need to speak for it. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Lou. Okay. And what I was going to say, obviously, Craig, and anyone else out there who is doing things for the lagoon, if you could let Brandon or Virginia know, I think it would be good to then let us know. Virginia, in your monthly report about what's going on in the community, just kind of shouting it out so that we can also be educated ourselves with what's going on. All right. So, anyone have any comment? Last minute comment from the committee?
Just want to say one thing.
Charles.
We started at the beginning of the meeting about Terry speaking at our Merritt Island Wildlife Association meeting. I was trying to get you to speak there too, but that is October 29th. It's a Saturday at the Divas Center. And so we have 1,000 people in our organization, but I really encourage all the board members, the audience to come to our fundraiser. It's a $30 dinner, and we have a fun silent auction, and we'll hear more about the lagoon.
And I will be there too, Charles.
Okay.
I'm there. So if that makes it feels like it's only worth $29, I'm sorry. I'll pay the difference on that one. Anyways, yeah, no, Charles, I'm really excited about that. Again, anytime we can present in front of the community, I think is a good thing to get the word out. Great. Okay, then the last thing before I end the meeting, which, by the way, we did not have to have a motion to extend, our first one in a while, so great job, everybody, Virginia, for planning. I just want to thank Logan and the county staff again for your work in helping us have these Zoom meetings and online meetings. I think they're very important for getting the word out. So thank you and your staff Logan and the county for facilitating that. All right, everybody, we will see you all in November for an exciting meeting where we will be going over the projects. Yeah, thank you, everybody. Have a great month.
Thank you, everyone.
The opinions expressed by any member of the public during any period of public comment do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, or the program sponsor, and are solely those of the presenter. The Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, and the program sponsor hereby expressly disclaim any and all responsibility or liability for any defamatory or slanderous statements expressed